then. So tonight's meeting of the Community Advisory Board for Little Rock School District will now begin. As we do every week, we begin with district celebrations from Mr. Poor. So I'll let you I'll let you go ahead and get started with those.
Thank you, Mr. Wood, and good evening to everyone that's listening to us this evening, and we hope that everyone is having a productive day. Wanted to have our first part of our celebrations go towards our VIPS program, our Partners in Education, and have Ms. Tammy Blaylock kind of lead us through a couple key partners that we'd like to celebrate and highlight. Ms. Blaylock?
Thank you. I'm very happy to be with y'all. It's been a while, and we apologize for that, but it certainly isn't due to the lack of participation of our community partners, because that is still going strong. It's just taken us a moment to work all of this out. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity tonight to recognize 4 of Little Rock School District's Partners in Education. I would refer to them as new partnerships, but that really isn't the case. These organizations were working out plans with their respective schools last winter and early spring, and that is until a virus changed everything for all of us. So these partners have been patient with us, and it's time for us to give them the acknowledgement that is overdue. So first up, I want to recognize Hope Credit Union and Little Rock Southwest High School. And I think we have their slide up there because I want everyone to see that. Principal Marvin Burton and Hope Program Officer Kimberly Lee are combining assets to ensure a great return on their partnership investment. Hope Credit Union will support Southwest students, parents, and staff with financial education workshops and offerings. All they can do to get their stakeholders information that they can bank on in and outside of the classroom. I'm going to invite representatives that might be here tonight. I can't see everyone that's entered the Zoom, but if you're a representative from Hope Credit Union or Southwest High School, would you please unmute and introduce yourself to our audience and say a word about your partnership? I think Kimberly Lee's here, right? Kimberly, are you there?
Yes, good evening, I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Tell everyone what you do at Hope Credit Union, and if you would, just a word or two about your partnership overview.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here in representation of Hope Credit Union. Since our partnership agreement on last year, my title have changed. I'm now the Financial Inclusion Officer, but my role is still the same. I will be partnering with the Little Rock Southwest High School with teaching financial literacy, anything from budgeting, credit, that is with the students and the parents as well, or staff. We are here to just build a partnership with the high school and the community of Southwest Little Rock.
Cool.
We appreciate you. Anyone here from Southwest that wants to say hi?
Yes, ma'am. This is Tejal. I am the Family and Community Liaison for the Little Rock Southwest High School. Mr. Burton sends his regards. He had a previous engagement. But we are so excited to have Kimberly Lee and Hope Credit Union on board this school year. Her and her colleagues have been attending our family engagement meeting since last fall. And so we are excited to have them come aboard and provide financial literacy to our community of parents and students. So thank you.
We're always excited when we have new partners. So yes, we appreciate you. Thank y'all both very much for being here. Next, I'd like to recognize the Arkansas chapter of the American Chemical Society. They're in partnership with the Forest Heights STEM Academy. You know, this partnership is a simple chemical equation, sure to have proactive results. You see, the ACS had a theory that if students develop a true excitement for science, math, and technology, it will result in more of them entering into scientific and engineering professions. So the Society is offering to participate in school career days, extend professional development opportunities to Forest Heights staff, and to offer science-related resources to the school. Principal Amy Cooper, teacher Amber Harmon, and society member Dr. Sarah Hubbard make up the research team for this project and partnership. I regret that they could not be with us tonight, but they are excited about this partnership recognition and proud of the work that they're doing in support of Forest Heights STEM students. So thank you, Arkansas chapter of the American Chemical Society. We appreciate you. Now, if we were going to appraise the value of a partnership, I guess we could easily start with the partner properties of Tiffany Hoffman Smith Realtor and Terry Elementary. You know, Tiffany went into the school and asked a simple question: how can I help? And it resulted in a capital gain for everyone. She's made a commitment to focus on teacher appreciations and assisting school families and staff with housing resources and education. Little Rock teachers continually prove to be our community's top producers, and Tiffany has found some creative ways to support them. Do we have any representatives from Terry? Stephanie, did I see you?
Yes, I'm on the call. I just want to acknowledge that Ms. Hoffman Smith has been instrumental in doing exactly what she set out to do, and that is to support our teachers for teacher appreciation. But she also is a great resource and a tool for many of our families that move to Little Rock and are brand new to Little Rock and move into the area apartments. And then after getting settled, they seek, you know, housing. And so she provides that resource as well, just to provide information about the city itself, as well as any real estate properties that are available, hopefully in the Terry zone, so we can keep them in our school zone. So I just want to acknowledge her hard work and say thank you.
Yes, and her promoting Little Rock schools to her clients. It's important. Thank you. I appreciate you, Stephanie. Also, I would like to recognize Paul Steen Magnet. Very excited about their partnership with the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub, and who can blame them? The Innovation Hub is not new to the Little Rock School District, but as they always look for creative ways to expand their use of tools and skills and expertise, this particular pairing made sense at Hall High School as students in the STEAM program explore future technologies. And so we're pleased to have several of those partner leaders with us tonight. Those of you that are here and represent Hall or the Hub, would you please introduce yourselves to us and tell us something about the partnership?
I'm Linda Brown with the Tribe. Erin Stenger was here earlier. She's Arkansas Innovation Hub.
I'm here.
Oh, Erin, there you are. Hi.
I'm here. Hi.
We're thrilled that this partnership has developed. As Tamara was saying earlier, of course, things have been slow to be able to get going with the pandemic, but we're so excited about the future of our partnership with them.
Yeah, we thank you so much for everything that you do. We are also excited and have enjoyed all the interactions that we've had with Hall so far, and we look forward to a successful school year and a successful time with the students. Even though we might have to be virtual, we're going to figure it out and succeed.
Thanks.
I see Mr. Roberts has joined us. Anyone else representing either of those two groups? Would you like to say anything before we?
Hey, this is Chris Jones from the Innovation Hub, the executive director. I just wanted to echo what Erin said and how excited we are for this partnership. It's been amazing on our end and inspiring for sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, before I wrap this.
Tammy, let me interrupt. I also want to thank Mr. Jones for babysitting tonight, because we know that without that, his wife as a CAB member would be held up. So we appreciate his multi-talented skills as the head of the hub, supporter of Hall High, and most importantly, dad that helps out with the family chores.
Absolutely.
That is. Also, I would be sorely amiss if I did not mention some of the outstanding things that have been going on in our school community the last couple of weeks through our partnerships, our extended community partnerships. It is so fast that it would be impossible for me to single each organization out, but I do encourage each of you to follow the Little Rock School District Facebook page as well as the VITS Facebook pages. We highlight some of these extraordinary contributions these partners are making to student school supplies, PPE, meals for staff. I mean, the list goes on, and so it reminds me that regardless of the circumstances that are out there, people find a way to be involved and stay involved, and we want to reassure you how much we appreciate that and acknowledge your involvement in the months ahead. So thank you to our 4 partners this month. I plan to be back next month with more to recognize, and I appreciate all of you participating. Thank you.
Mr. Wood, I'll continue on with our celebrations, and want to thank Tammy and Jackie Merrill, who's her right hand, for all the work that they do with VIPS and with our community partners. And again, thank you, community partners, for being on with us this evening. But most importantly, thank you for your multiple contributions that you make in our district and to our students and our faculty. Thank you. I know that CAB members are grateful for all the support you provide. We're going to do some quick hitters in terms of celebrations. This young man is going to be a senior at Central High this year. He finished in the top 10 in the entire country in the Spelman STEM contest. This earned him a cash prize, and his contraption there is designed to produce cool air and a different way to move air in a much more effective manner in places where maybe that is very costly to do. So the neat thing about Landon, he wrote a wonderful note to us all to say thank you for the recognition. This was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then the very next thing he said is, at the end of it, he says, well, I got to get going. I got other things to do. So imagine what this young man is getting ready to go towards. He's an amazing kid, and we applaud him and his family, and of course the teachers that help make up Landon and support him. Next slide is
Mr. Portcaner for just a second, and remind you that Landon was a significant voice for students at Central to be able to stay in their school whenever we were having the discussions about high school attendance zones. I remember Landon coming to one of our meetings and standing up for students. So clearly a leader.
Excellent point. Thank you for slowing me down, Mr. Wood, and great addition. Our next slide is Miss Amber Harvin. She's a teacher at the wonderful school Forest Heights, and she's a Final Four winner. Her being a Final Four winner now is starting to become a tradition in Little Rock School District. 3 years in a row where Little Rock School District has had Final Four placeholders, which is really unheard of. Stacy McAdoo, of course, who won the whole thing. That was 2 years ago. Last year, Jeff Whitlow, and this year, Amber. And so she's in the Final Four, and that is such a distinct honor when you think about our entire state. And we're just really pleased that we have someone like her representing our district and also representing our state. We had new teachers coming in and new employees. That's our next slide. We've had really an amazing amount of folks that have come in this year, a little bit more than previous years, just because of changes. And you know, it's everything from classified folks to new folks that are in the teaching profession and new administrators. And we're very, very pleased with the job that our HR team did in putting on the new employee orientation. It was all virtual, and we're very pleased with that event. Next, we also had a wonderful convocation. We had multiple partners that supported us in that convocation to honor our staff throughout the ceremony. The big grand prize was a Sissy's $1,600 value bracelet. This went to a gentleman from Meadowcliff Elementary by the name of Victor Settles, and he was pretty excited. We had pictures of him getting fired up about winning this prize. Other prizes were donated by Ms. Kathy Peck and Trios, Mr. Abraham Carpenter, who is just always there with Carpenter's Produce. You can see him kind of down at the bottom center of the screen. We had both teacher associations, Little Rock Education Association and ASTA, that participated, and then the Porters pitched in $500 as well. Had Mr. Whitlow, and then we had a young man by the name of Deontay that was he's going to be a senior at Southwest. Fantastic. Mr. Cummings, a senior at Parkview, played music. We had a wonderful, wonderful convocation, and I think we got the year started off right. Our next slide is we get to honor a young man who is a teacher at Mann Middle School. This young man won $5,000 as a part of what's called the Life Changer Award recipient. This is sponsored by the National Life Group Foundation, and the Life Changer of the Year recognizes and awards the very best of K-12 educators and school district employees across the United States who are making a difference in the lives of students by exemplifying excellence, positive influence, and leadership. The Spirit Award specifically honors the nominee whose community demonstrates the most support for their nomination. So it's really awesome that Nicholas won this award. Great recognition for Mann and for him and his colleagues, and he's $5,000 in his pocket. So we congratulate him, and if you're out in TV land with any of the folks that we're mentioning in recognition, hopefully you'll find a way to reach out to some of those folks and give them a pat on the back. Next, we had the grand opening of Little Rock Southwest High. That'll probably come up a little bit when we start to talk about our action item this evening for a debt extension, because I think this is a shining example of what can happen when resources come into the district, and this school's amazing, and we're getting to showcase it in a variety of different ways. We've done that really throughout the whole process, and we're on time, on budget, and didn't have one accident. And now we have young people filling the halls and starting to come into the Southwest. We have sports teams, and we have other groups that have already started to come in. Our teachers seem to be thrilled. It's quite an environment. Next slide is that we were able, over the course of this week, really strongly to go push out our own story, and the networks did that, but also our own social media groups, being able to do quick video one-hitters from our own groups of showing what we're doing on buses, what we're doing with safety within the classrooms, what does it look like in terms of standardization. And Pam Smith and her team did a great job of putting that on. We also appreciate the coverage of the different networks that have highlighted the efforts of Little Rock School District to be prepared for the start of the year. And you'll hear a deeper report from Kelsey about some of the PPE that's gone out, but one of the morning shows had both Mr. Bailey and Dr. Owa out for an early morning. We got great coverage about all the PPE, and it was kind of neat that as they were talking, that you actually had forklifts moving and making noise behind them. And it was a busy place, has been busy all week. And Mr. Bailey will probably give you a little bit of a better view of how we've done on our CARES funding when we get to the budget. Next slide is we also had a town hall meeting. We actually had 2 of those this week. They were really conducted by our staff, and it's both teachers and administrators that helped put that on. These opportunities for a town hall was really to make people more aware of the power of the tool Schoology, and we captured this. So it is on our website. People can access it later times. We also did this program for our Spanish-speaking families on Wednesday. So back-to-back nights of town hall meetings, and we were very, very pleased with the reception we've had. And you'll hear later on in our report of Ms. Worsham sharing a little bit more about Schoology when we talk about the getting ready for the opening of school. The next thing that I bring up is we always do our Dads Matter, and we don't want to back off that even in a pandemic type situation. We know that about half of our kids are virtual to start the year, and the other half will be in person. But throughout next week, we want pictures of dads as they are dropping off their students at school, as they're working with them from their home environments, uploading those pictures onto our Little Rock School District Facebook page for the chance to win prizes. This year's a little different in that we're doing those photo opportunities throughout the week. We get wonderful pictures, and it means so much to the dads, and we'll find a way to honor and recognize those winning dads who come forward with having the most people like their photos, because that's a part of this as well. So we love that Pam has found another way to recognize our fantastic fathers and men that are supporting our students as we start the school year. And with that, Mr. Wood, that would be all of our celebrations for this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Well, the next item then on the agenda is community comments. I'll let you take that and kind of direct us in the way that's, just for the public that's watching. We continue to try to adapt our procedures for receiving public comments during this unique time we're in. So Mr. Poor, what do we have tonight as far as maybe what we've received ahead of the meeting? And then is there anybody that asked to speak live this evening?
Mr. Wood, we checked on this. We always have a timeline of people needing to register by 1 o'clock, and at the time that happened, we did not have anyone register to speak or to provide comments to us. Now, I do want to share in a public way, and I'm sure that maybe some CAB members would comment as well, and I think it'll be a part of our conversations this evening, is that I have received numerous emails and text messages over especially the last 24 hours. And, I'm trying to respond to every one of those emails. I have some work yet to do on that, but I've been working hard at trying to keep on top of those as best I can, but I probably have another 40 to 50 emails still to answer, and I bet you I've answered close to 50. Okay. So I will promise all stakeholders that have sent me an email that you will get a response, and I know you as community advisory board members do that as well. And I don't know if any, I'm sure some of your comments will come to honor what people have told you once we talk about some of our specific topics this evening. But I did want to just share that I have received a lot of information this week and input, and on both ends of it, some people very happy, some not so happy, and some just wanting to share some other ways to think about things.
Yeah. Well, sounds like the engagement's high right now. Whether or not we receive public comments for this meeting, people are reaching out with their thoughts. Well, then it seems that we would move right along to the PPC reports from both Ms. Eason and Ms. Austin. Are both of them here? We could start with Ms. Eason, I suppose. Ms. Eason?
She's coming back tonight from her vacation, so she does not have a report to provide.
Okay.
We will hear comments in policy from Mr. Walker about some recent discussions that they had on policy.
Okay. All right. Well, Ms. Austin, is she here? I see her as she has joined our meeting. Ms. Austin? Ms. Austin, I'm afraid we're not hearing you right now. I do hear a little bit of some background sounds.
Just a moment.
Oh, there we go. Good. It's a sign of life. That's good.
Real multitasking. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm multitasking today.
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and my report will be brief for the certified PPC. Just wanted to give an update. We did meet on Monday. Our biggest challenge right now is trying to replace those PPC representatives who have changed schools. And so I am working on sending emails to the schools who no longer have a PPC rep. And we are going to upload an application for them to apply to be a candidate. And then we'll go from school to individually have those people selected and elected. So that is where we are as far as elections. Um, Other than that, I think Attorney Walker is going to bring up a document later on about the COVID emergency leave. The only question that the PPC really had was, is there anything in the document that was different from the COVID leave that Jordan Easton talked about in her self-paced professional development that we did on yesterday? So that was pretty much the only question. She talked about 5 different types of COVID leave, including FMLA, and we just wanted to know, was there anything in red that may be different from what she had explained to us originally in her video?
Okay. Well, good. Well, I'll be sure to that question gets addressed whenever Mr. Walker brings that item up in a little bit. Ms. Austin, you were talking about elections to help replace those members of the committee that have changed schools. What about elections in general? Is this the time of year when the entire PPC will be up for an election occur for everyone on the PPC, or are we just looking at elections for those in those
schools? When we originally started the PPC and we started with our bylaws, because we started the PPC at the beginning of the school year, we voted on doing 2-year terms beginning with the 2021 school year. So this would actually be a full term starting now for the people who are already sitting on the PPC. And now we're having to replace those who are moving to new buildings. So we said 2 years for our PPC seats, and we would do elections every 2 years, but it's officially going to start for the 2021 year as opposed to January.
Okay.
So we were kind of all getting our feet wet from January up until now.
Sure, that makes sense. Did y'all consider staggering those terms at all so that you don't have a complete turnover in the entire PPC?
That we talk with them about. Now with this one, we will do a PPC rep and an alternate in case someone can't come, then we'll have someone to back them up. So that was something new that came up, and I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Okay, so the only thing from the PPC then is just making sure that the changes in the COVID leave policy are consistent with the things that Ms. Easton explained to you yesterday in her professional development.
Yes, sir. And also, if you go to the Little Rock School District's website and you click on the Human Resources tab, on the very bottom left, there is a link for the Personnel Policy Committee. That is where you can see all of our minutes up until July, and you can see a roster of the people who are currently sitting there. But of course, that'll change sometime between this month and next with the new PPC members coming in.
Okay. Any other members of the board have any questions for Ms. Austin? I'll give you a few minutes to pop on here. Said minutes, I'll give you a few seconds. Pop on here if you got anything.
Mr. Wood, I just want to add one thing that one of the things Ms. Austin, I don't want her to go into total detail, but they grilled Randy Rutherford for probably a good hour and a half, just about, you know, all the things of what we're doing for protocols for safety and even some things with instruction and kids and staff. So please know, anybody out in the audience, that the PPC has been very engaged in trying to, you know, make sure they're educated, but also to ask difficult questions so that we do everything right to try to protect our students.
And also the PPC really wants to thank Mr. Rutherford as well, because we did have lots of questions for him, and he is always so gracious about getting us answers. And if it's something that he can't answer at the moment, he always follows up. So I do want to just give a big shout out to that, because he was like right on point when we did have questions about things.
Very good. Well, hearing nothing from any other members of the board, for you, Miss Austin. Thank you once again. Thank you for always being here, and thanks for your engagement with the certified personnel and all you do for your students at Cloverdale and your colleagues.
Thank you, Chair Wood. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
You all have a great evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Poor, the next item on our agenda is secondary summer school 2020.
Thank you, and just set the stage for this. Mr. Rutherford can also assist if we need to, but we have the expert to deliver the presentation, and Mr. Eric Henderson, who's an assistant principal at Parkview. As you all know, we did not do an elementary summer school this year because of the pandemic, but we were able to do a secondary, and I'm telling you, combination of what we did in the spring under Ed Minham, and then throughout the summer of the efforts Mr. Henderson and staff have made, we made real strides to help and support kids get to the graduation in line. And final comment before I turn to Mr. Henderson is this gentleman, Mr. Henderson, has been he is our stalwart. He's the person that has run summer schools forever. It seems like at least in my tenure, that's the constant. And I think it was before me as well. And he does an exceptional job of coordinating multiple campuses and multiple staff members to make sure that this thing runs really smoothly. And we don't, one of the attributes that central office people really could feel about side people, we hardly ever have to worry about this. So I will turn it over to Mr. Rutherford. Do you have any comment before we turn to Mr. Henderson?
I'm just going to jump in and let the cab know as well that Mr. Henderson, he handles it. I mean, and I don't know there's a better person that does handle it. I appreciate him because obviously as the person that's directly with him on summer school, very rarely are there any issues that he can't handle in those things. So I just want the cab to know Mr. Henderson works at it, and he really does a fine job for us in summer school and that stuff. So that, Mr. Henderson, you can pay me $5 and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rutherford. Thank you, Mr. Poor. Mr. Poor, I'm gonna steal your thunder, start with some celebrations. I want to make sure I raise these people up before I forget. Of course, Mr. Rutherford, thank you for all the work that you do. I gotta say thank you to Ms. Joyce Holmes for keeping me structured and organized. But really, this year summer school was vastly different. So Ms. Allen and her assistant, great thanks to you. We were able to get 19 students to get their high school diplomas after the June regular school year ended in June or May. This year we combined Hall High School, Parkview High School, J.A. Farrah McClellan High School into one site under the summer school principal, Miss Jasmine Jeter. She did a phenomenal job coordinating all these campuses under one site. And then for Little Rock Central, Miss Brenda Bankston and Mr. Ernie McGee ran that site. This year, we were vastly different due to the coronavirus. For middle school, which we talked about a lot last year at the CAP meeting, that did not exist this year because it would have to have been face-to-face, and we just simply could not do that for the safety of all involved. Credit recovery for high school students was vastly reduced this year. A lot of that, I don't know if that was a lot of burnout or just it was just the kind of way it went. This year, our students received 214 half credits, with 156 students completing that, with initial registrants of 349 students. So when I looked at some of the data, last year we had 72.8% of our students completing credits. This year that number dropped down to 61.3%. Some of the other things that we did this year that were vastly different than before, we waived all tuition instead of just for those students that had free or reduced lunch status. It was tuition free this summer. And we also eliminated the one credit rule that we had, which meant that students can only earn one credit in the summer, which is 2 half credit courses. This year, as many as you could take, even though we would stagger those out and not have a kid or student working on 5 or 6 things at one time. You may get 1 or 2, and then when you finish those, you can elect to have another one. Again, our staff was greatly reduced. We went from nearly 50 staff members throughout because we eliminated the middle school, and because we combined campuses, I think we ended up with 13 employees, which vastly reduced our budget. So again, historically, we eliminated middle school, which we didn't have this year. We combined lots of campuses. We had a reduced load. The number of credits earned last year was 765. This year was 214. That was a decrease of 72%. And that's simply due to the coronavirus. And we just had to work with what we had to work with. So just moving forward, of course, we like to have our traditional summer school structure, and having our students that are receiving credit recovery to have those on site going forward, simply because that push and having the teachers there with them, I think, promoted greater student learning. So with that, that ends my report. Anybody have any questions?
I do not. Any other members of the board have any questions of Mr. Henderson? No? All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Henderson, for your work. I know that even though it's a reduced year, a reduced summer, still very impactful for those individuals that that were a part of your program. So thank you for leading that. Yes.
I do have a question. For the students that weren't able to complete these courses, how are we going to handle them? And if they move forward, I assume they're moving forward, will they have an opportunity if they're signed up for in-person or anything like that to complete this?
Usually we always extend the time at the end for those students that have, extenuating circumstances, which in this case is all students. So we'll normally extend any late work to the end of the first quarter.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wood, I would like to say something. I just want you, for Mr. Henderson, his passion resonates through the halls, and not only just serving as a summer school principal, he's really passionate. And so I just say kudos to you for your dedication and your service to the Little Rock School District. It is truly your passion.
Thank you very much. It is.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. We appreciate your time. Thank you for being here tonight for your report.
All right, you're welcome. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. Okay, Mr. Poor, update on school openings. Any big announcements you want to make today?
You got jokes, Mr. Wood. We do want to provide a report, and we are going to kind of do a very quick hitting update. We thought that it would be helpful for you to hear from each level and each leader a little bit about where we're at in terms of opening schools. So we'll start with Mr. Smith and hearing about our pre-K through 5, and then our secondary schools, Mr. Rutherford, and then Hope Worsham, and then finish with Jeremy. And then we know that there are going to be questions that you may have, but these quick updates also, I think, will be helpful. We've also we're prepared to also answer questions on both operational and educational delivery that are important to you, because the questions you have obviously are questions you've received. We want to air those out and make sure that they're being publicly addressed. So to begin with, we'll go to Mr. Smith and get the pre-K through 5 update.
Thank you, Mr. Ford, Mr. Woods, and members of the board and our community. I want to thank for this opportunity to share and bring you up to speed on where we are with elementary schools. First, I'd like to commend our leaders in our buildings for the hard work and their leadership, and most importantly, their flexibility that they've shown over the last couple of weeks in order for us to get prepared for August 24th. A few things that have occurred over the last few weeks. First, building level teams created building level ready to learn plans for each campus that they've shared with their communities. We've also been able to deliver laptops for teachers so that they can support virtual and in-person learning using technology. And then also, this week we began distributing devices to students at each one of our campuses as well. So that's been going on each day, even into the evenings. I was watching one school that was there as late as 7:30 last night, handing out devices to ensure that we have the materials that we need for our students who are virtual, but also to make sure that we're prepared for those students on Monday, August 24th. And also, I'd like to point out, we did get an opportunity to get out to schools this past week, and want to commend our teachers as well for getting into the buildings, being engaged in professional development, and also setting up their rooms and being very thoughtful in this process to ensure that we're taking the safety of our students and staff at the forefront of what we do each day. Mr. Rutherford.
Transitioning right into secondary, you're going to hear a lot of the same things again. Of course, our principals also have been working very hard, and not just them. I want to point out our teachers and our leadership teams, which includes our teachers and our staff in our schools, because they put a lot of hard work into their own individual schools, ready for learning plan to get ready to come back to school. And so that's not just principals, but they lead it. I want to be clear there. But I mean, there's a lot of staff members and teachers engaged in that as well. Congratulations to our middle schools, because they have converted themselves into an AB block in a short amount of time. And as we've shared with the CAB before, the reason for that was less transitions, obviously, within the school day, which will help us quite a bit. And that's quite a bit of an undertaking again, and it's something that our teachers and our staff will need to adjust to. But we do think with some of the things that Ms. Worsham will share with you in a minute, and the new platforms and those things, it helps to have more time in the classroom with kids. And so we think that'll be great. Our teachers also received laptops throughout the district itself, and of course the secondary included that. We also did Chromebook distribution this week. As a matter of fact, there's some comments out there right now. Parkview gave them out today, and evidently we locked up Barrow Road pretty good for that. And I say that to say that that's their work. They spent all day outside. That's teachers, staff members, principals. That's everyone to make that happen. And obviously practice the safety things that we need to practice when we come in contact with different people. And so some of the CAB members may hear some about that. And I say that up front. But Mr. Caspary and his team did do as thorough and as quick a job as they could. Part of the transition in that, just to fill you in, was we did have some non-virtual school students' parents show up at Parkview to try and obtain Chromebooks, which naturally added to the crowd itself there. But I mentioned Parkview today because that was the big one, I guess, but all week long, our middle schools and high schools have been working to distribute the technology as we go through it. I like Mr. Smith, and I'm going to brag on our principals. I'm telling you, we are blessed, y'all. We have a great group, an amazing group, an engaged group of principals. They're handling curveball after curveball after curveball, and with them and their team, and I'm going to go back to teachers too, they keep handling it, keep standing up to it, and keep working hard for us to get ready for our kids to come back to school. And now we really, when you think about it, they've got two different platforms they've got to help figure out. Because it's not just their traditional school, they've also got to work through the virtual components of that as well. Master schedules, they did a great job on those. We do have PLCs plugged in our master schedules all the way through, as we've shared with the CAP before. That was one of our main objectives. As we know, it also is part of our release from under state control. So that was very important for us to make sure those PLC times are set. I mentioned that they also, they're unbelievable when it comes to trying to work on rooms to create social distancing. Some of our rooms, as you all know, are very small, and they're figuring out plans on when they look at how many in-class students they have. They're switching rooms. They're doing the best they can to make that happen wherever it is possible. And so that's not easy. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. And when I say principals, I want to be clear, I also mean our assistant principals, because they're very deep in that as well. Finally, I'm going to finish up with our teachers. Absolutely, and like Mr. Smith said earlier, we got to get out in schools, which was kind of exciting to see people again and those things. And our teachers are dedicated. They work hard. They were engaged in professional development while we were out and about. At the same time, when they got breaks, they were making the adjustments to their rooms, Some of them are cleaning the rooms and working. I mean, they really, really have done a good job. And the one thing I will say about them as well, they've shown great patience with us. Because when I say that, because again, that their world's changing, and just like our world, just like everybody's world is changing. And they've done a good job of showing the patience and we appreciate them working with us as well. And so a lot of things happening on the secondary level. I know Mr. Smith would jump right back in and say some of the very things I just said about elementary. Over to you, Hope.
Thank you. Good evening, Cab. So when we looked at over the past week, the things that we've been working towards with professional development, our teachers, I just echo what's already been said, they really jumped right into Schoology. In the past 3 weeks, we identified a group of teachers from each building level that would be the Schoology ambassadors, and that group was an absolutely amazing group. There's over 150 of them across our schools. By building, we identified the number of people, depending on building size, how many ambassadors would be in that building, and those Schoology ambassadors jumped in and got trained themselves. And then last week, I worked with our teachers on training them on how to use the Schoology platform. And those were great sessions, and the teachers have jumped right in and started putting curriculum in and their content in and preparing their lessons for the start of school. We also were able to, through professional development, hold almost a mini conference over Monday and Tuesday, and I have to give a big shout out to not only my team, but several teachers that did sessions, different directors, different departments from the district, and Dr. Erica McCarroll did a fabulous job of organizing all of that and getting Zoom links for everyone, and we had over 150 sessions that were offered to our teachers. And we had some technical issues. That's going to happen with anything the first time we try, a virtual conference, but all things considered, the professional development went very well. And then teachers that had already had enough hours, they were able to use that time to plan and work on lessons. They had time yesterday and today to do the same thing, to work on their lessons and plan. And so that went very well. We also, part of their back to school PD were 2 self-paced modules, and a big shout out to Ms. Bushmeyer, Ms. Eason, Mr. Self, Ms. Cassandra Green, or Ms. Green, and Ms. Grayson. They all actually built self-paced modules inside of Schoology, and so that allowed our teachers and all of our classified staff to participate in the Schoology platform, see what it looked like, participate in discussion boards and taking a quiz, so they got a feel for what their students would be experiencing. So those went very well, and we're able to get information out to all of our staff that was very important around health and safety, social emotional learning, self-care, and also around conscious discipline and responding to students in that manner. As far as for curriculum, teachers obviously have been working very hard. We have loaded all of our, been able to load all of our textbooks and resources into Schoology. The new curriculum maps have been loaded and discussed with teachers on their second day of professional development. And so those collaborative teams are now working to work through looking at essential standards and how do we teach towards those so that we make sure students, the gaps in their learning are addressed whenever they come back next week. We also have been working to prepare for our virtual students. Next week, all virtual students will have when they log into Schoology on Monday morning, our virtual students will have lessons that they work through next week that get them acclimated to the Schoology system, that get them acclimated to what a digital learning environment will look like. They will meet their classroom teachers on Wednesday. They will have some live Zoom sessions with CNI staff across the weeks to check in, to make sure that they're learning the Schoology platform, check on things like devices and connectivity, so that we can make sure our virtual students have what they need to be successful, and then they will start interacting with their classroom teachers the week after. So the CNI staff has been working to get those lessons and prepare for the first week of school for our virtual students, and they will hold those sessions with virtual students next week, so that in-person students and teachers have some time to get rituals and routines down and to work on, health and safety and those guidelines for students that are here in person. And so next week for virtual students, they will have lessons that they do in Schoology. They will be able to log into Schoology first thing Monday morning and have access to the content that is there for them. We also have a parent letter that is going out to all virtual students that explains those steps. How do I log in? What do I do if I can't log in? How do I get help? And so the reason that is being sent out at this time is because students did not have access to Schoology until Monday morning. And so we will get that information out to parents tomorrow so that they have that information ready to go for Monday morning.
Okay. Mr. Porter?
Yeah, last person, just let Dr. Owa wrap us up and then we'll go into Q&A.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ford. Good evening, everyone. Just to wrap us up, I know that Hope, Randy, and Darian mentioned and commended the principals and our leadership teams there, but I just wanted to quickly commend them. We've had some long days, some very busy days with meetings, and just to make sure that we're prepared to support our schools, our students, and our staff members. And so I wanted to briefly commend them on their work leading up to the start of school. Also to remind everyone, we are constantly updating our Ready for Learning plan and the Q&A. And so those are not stagnant documents, they're actual living documents. We'll constantly, as we receive new guidance from Arkansas Department of Health and Arkansas Department of Education, we'll update those. And so the most current information is on our website. We will then probably by next week have a revised version of our Ready for Learning plan, and so please stay tuned for that. We'll continue to work with our vendors. Mr. Bailey and I have been tag teaming and contacting our vendors to make sure that we still have some technology that was on back order, some of our Chromebooks, and so we're waiting to get those devices in so that even our in-person students will be able to have a device so that we will be one-to-one. So that hopefully we will be able to meet that goal by mid-September. I believe that's it. We, as the team just stated, that we were able to get into the schools, and which was really important for us because we were able to talk to teachers, talk to our support staff and our principals to just learn what's going on, the challenges or the barriers that they were facing, so we could immediately address those and remove those barriers from those locations as we prepare to receive our students next week. And so we'll continue to reach out to them, share the latest guidance and support as we move forward. We have plans to have district support in all of our schools next week just to support the principals and the teachers as they welcome our students. So that's it for that part of the report. Mr. Porter, do you want to lead into district support plan, or did you want to add something?
No, I think we want to stop here and let Q&A occur, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Wood.
Sure. Any members of the board have questions for anyone that has addressed this Ready for Learning plan so far? Ms. Fox, any questions from you?
I do have quite a few questions. I'm sorry. First of all, Ms. Worsham, you mentioned that the students that are signed up for virtual are getting lessons in Schoology. Are the students that are in person getting those same lessons?
Yes.
You know, how to use Schoology just in case we have to pivot?
Yes, sorry, I did forget to mention that. So the first week for our in-person students will also focus around how to use Schoology, how to log in, those kind of things.
Okay, great. And then that's going to lead me to the Chromebooks that are being passed out. You said that not all of them are in yet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so do we know do we even have enough for all the people that signed up for virtual, or are we still waiting on some of those to come in too?
Yes, we do have some. What the technology team has done, started last week. Well, even before that, 2 weeks, we started the meeting with the principals and looking at the survey results on students who were choosing the virtual learning environment versus the in-person learning environment. And the technology team led by Mr. John Ruffin started to shift those devices among the schools. We were able to utilize some Chromebooks that we had at some of the schools that we closed to meet the needs for K2. So right now, Mr. Ruffin feels as if we have enough to meet all the virtual student needs. And then when we receive our last order of Chromebooks, we'll be able to provide those devices to all of our in-person students.
And those in-person students will be able to take them home if we have to pivot, correct?
Yes, that's the plan. The plan is for as soon as we get those Chromebooks in, that we will immediately check those devices out to the students. And so they would actually, even when they're attending school, will bring them back and forth. So if something happens over the weekend, they will already have their devices. The teachers will already have their devices, so that we wouldn't have to come up with another way, an emergency way of distributing the devices.
Okay. And then connectivity issues and hotspots. How are we handling that, and is there a process?
So yes, we the district have purchased, ordered. That's another order that was back ordered, and it's just because of the volume of orders from all the districts. But we have placed and ordered 2,500 hotspots, and then of course we will receive 500 from the Department of Ed. And so we're working with our school counselors. Mrs. Grayson, our Director of Counseling here at the district, is working with the counselors to ascertain the need, so we can know who the students who will actually need to obtain a hotspot device. And so that's how we're approaching addressing the need for the device. We also have, Mr. Ford has worked with some community partners, and so there are some other means for students to obtain connectivity throughout the city as well, through those community partners.
So the hotspots are not in yet?
No, we're waiting for them.
Do we have an estimate on when they will be here? I know there are probably supply chain issues.
Can I answer that one, Jeremy? I was on a superintendent Zoom this evening that had over 200 superintendents, and everybody's run into the same issue there and wondering where they're at. So we're hopeful that we'll get those in, and Mr. Bailey may have even a better idea, but even the 500 from the state haven't arrived yet, so we're still in a holding pattern. The guesstimate on the 500 from the state was sometime about the first week of September, and I don't know if Mr. Bailey can give any other definite information.
Hey, Kelsey, your connection is poor. At least it is on my end. Is everyone else experiencing that?
I didn't understand a word he just said.
Yeah. Like a.
Looks like he's reconnecting. This might be a question for him to answer as well, but I want to piggyback off of what Ms. Fox asked, since we're kind of on the topic of technology. We're saying, so not all the Chromebooks have arrived. When do we expect those Chromebooks to arrive?
Around the same time, Mr. Wood. Around the first week, the last update we had was September, the first part of September, the first week of September.
And how many are we talking about?
Probably, I believe that order was right at 2,000.
2,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you say that we have enough to put in the hands of all of our virtual learners by this weekend, though?
Yes, we have, Mr. Ruffin said we had enough technology for all the students who selected virtual learning. We just had to move those devices among the schools.
Okay. And tomorrow's Friday. Are they going to be in our virtual learners' hands by the weekend so that on Monday, I guess at least, well, it's another topic, but they need them by Monday. We're going to have them in their hands by Monday? All virtual learners?
Let me pivot to Mr. Smith and Mr. Rutherford to see if there are any outstanding deliveries.
I know that schools are actively delivering them. You know, my kids are at Roberts, and you know they're being passed out last night and tonight. So I understand that, but you know, I also here want to make. I don't have connection with every school, and so just want to make sure that there's a plan that when everybody wakes up Saturday morning, they feel confident that their kid's ready for Monday.
Mr. Smith, do you want to go first?
Yes, the schools are actively working to work their list on the students who have selected virtual learning to make sure that they get a device as quickly as possible if they have not come in during the scheduled time this week. But the school teams are making contact with those families to ensure that they get a device if needed.
Okay.
And
then
then
a little bit better now.
Can hear you much better, Mr. Bailey.
Okay.
We did ask some other questions regarding the Chromebooks that are still outstanding. So if you'll hold your answer with regard to the hotspots, and then you may want to piggyback into the Chromebook discussion as well. Mr. Owa did say, or Dr. Owa did say that the Chromebooks are expected around the same time as the outstanding hotspots, first part of September. He told us there were about 2,000 Chromebooks still to be delivered.
That is correct. We did order 1,000 first. We ordered back in May, and those are actually first of the list for when they actually distributed in Arkansas. So we should get those, I think, the first week of September, second week of September. Second order 1,000 we following right after that, December after that, but it's depending on the supply chain. So just taking consideration as well, I don't think all students are required to take a Chromebook, just if they actually need it or requested, right? I can check. So some students may actually use their devices they already have. So but we are working to make sure everybody is allocated. They were picking up additional Chromebooks this evening when I was at procurement about 3:30, another 520 of them. So they're getting those out.
Well,
yeah, no, I completely understand that some students may use their own device and may not have requested one or whatever. I just want to make sure that when Monday morning happens, everybody's got a device and they're ready to go.
Understood.
Jeff, so here's my question. On the survey where parents got to select virtual versus in person, there was also a column of no response. I realized today, Mr. Rutherford, that Parkview had, backed up Barrow trying for the parents coming, and that some parents showed up that weren't on the virtual list. Are we having that occur at other schools where people are showing up that weren't on the virtual list, and do we have devices for them?
If you don't mind, I'm gonna jump in because I think my group's probably the large groups, if that makes sense. And the answer to that, Ms. Fox, is yes. In some cases, we do have people that didn't select virtual that are showing up. But I want to remind the CAB, now we're one-to-one in a lot of places, especially on the middle school level. So you know that. A good example is Pinnacle View Middle School is a good example. They had more than enough Chromebooks for their entire group. Well, that's what Dr. O was referring to. That's part of the movement that happens to go to other schools. Mm-hmm. Hall High School is another great example, and we all know that they went from a large number of students down to a much smaller number this year. So the excess there is being moved, and I know that. So I want you to kind of understand that yes, we have enough Chromebooks for the virtual. I am going to share with you the #1 school that does not have Chromebooks on campus passed out right now is Southwest High School. And so I say that just to be very clear. Mr. Burton has a plan, but right now, again, part of that moving parts is getting the Chromebooks to Southwest High School. And he does have a plan to distribute those and get them out. So I know that's convoluted a little bit, but there are enough virtual or Chromebooks for the virtual students itself. But Southwest High School has been our one. And I think Mr. Bailey can add in here to help me out there, but that's also part of that large group of Chromebooks that was originally ordered for Southwest that is hung up. if for lack of a better way to put it.
So they're not here.
That's correct. But I want to be clear, Ms. Fox, we have enough excess at other schools. We are moving them to Southwest to do the distribution.
So Sunday night, Southwest has a plan that when kids go to bed Sunday night, they'll have a Chrome, if they're a virtual learner, they'll have a Chromebook in hand ready for Monday morning.
Well, Mr. Wood, I can't 100% guarantee you that, but I mean, the plan is that as soon as the Chromebooks are there, Mr. Burton and them are kicking in to go to work. The other thing that Mr. Smith mentioned, I will say this, is it doesn't make sense, again, and Mr. Burton and I spoke about this today, is it's hard for him to roll out a plan when he doesn't already have them sitting right there to know that they're there, because we sure don't want parents to show up and not have Chromebooks for them.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding how these Chromebooks, there are enough extras on all the campuses to collect and put they're in our hands, they're just not in Southwest's hands. And I don't understand that.
I think
I'll chime in a little bit on that. One of the things that we're dealing with, probably about 6 techs that's out there. So the installation went from the actual laptops for the teachers, and we awaited the Chromebooks to be distributed. So a lot of the schools have been, to say, unoccupied for the last few months. So the Chromebooks that were the Pinnacle View, they were all in actual, we call the carts. So they removed those out of carts today. We actually had 400 in the tech center. We end up pivoting and moving those to Parkview. So they were distributed today at 520 at the Pyramid Warehouse, which they picked up this afternoon. So those actually should be at Southwest, because that's where they were delivering. So I believe the plan was Southwest needed 1,000 based on the virtual. So 1,000 should be covered on tomorrow. I believe they picked up the ones with Pinnacle View, which is 400 or 500. We already had 520 in the warehouse. A part of those was scheduled to actually go to Central. We talked to Central. Central said she can forego 200 or something she was supposed to get. And we actually converted those to Southwest. So Southwest should be covered this weekend. Should be covered tomorrow, actually.
Okay.
But we're just working with, there's a lot of technology going out there, so a whole lot.
Right, and so I feel like
about 1,000 iPads from yesterday as well.
Yeah, and I feel like the discussion we've had so far about these Chromebooks, and I hate getting bogged down in this stuff, guys. I do think that there's a lot of concern among parents. There's a little bit of panic on Thursday before school starts. So we've talked about virtual learners, and it, you know, there are strong plans to have devices in all virtual learners' hands by Sunday, you know, understanding that needs to be slightly flexible, I guess. But what about Monday morning when in-person learners show up to the schools? Do they need to have a device at 8 a.m. on Monday morning at every location, or is in-person learning flexible enough with Chromebooks that we can buy ourselves a day or two to put a Chromebook in an in-person learner's hand?
Well, is that me?
I don't know.
Well, yes. So in-person learning, teachers are, principals have been working with teachers to be prepared to teach. Now, as Ms. Worsham stated a few minutes ago, it is the plan for the in-person students to receive the same instruction on Schoology as our virtual learning students. But our teachers are expected to provide in-person, face-to-face instruction in conjunction with the Schoology lesson. Most of the time it's the getting to know you type activities. So that's, but the teachers are prepared to teach. And then teachers have also been working to place lessons in the Schoology platform as well. And so that's the work that they've been doing these past 2 weeks.
So I have some questions too, and I'm gonna ask more from the not Dr. Hat on, the in-person student learning side. So I'm hearing a lot of talk about all of these things that were put in place for the virtual learners, which is important, and I'm glad to know that the in-person students will be hopefully getting familiar with the virtual platform, just in case we do have to pivot. But my concern is given the announcement of basically the in-person week now being cut from 5 days to 2 days, how are you all ensuring equivalence of education between the virtual learners, because I'm assuming they have a plan for 5 days a week, and the people that have chosen to go in person, who will now only have instruction 2 days a week?
So I can address that. For the students that are virtual, the time that we are expecting for them to be online and engaging in learning is going to be less in a given day than the students who are on campus. So if you think about students who are coming on campus, that's about 6 hours a day that they're going to be engaged in learning. So across those 6 hours, they're going to get that 6 hours worth of information in 2 different days. And so for our students who are at home, then that time is spread out across the 5 days. So the same information, content, expectation as far as just getting comfortable with the platform, getting comfortable with how do you post a comment, how do you interact with your teachers, how do you get information, that is the same across both groups of students, so that if and when we do have to pivot to remote learning, both sets of students are comfortable with.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, then so I get that the expectation was not for virtual students to be in front of a computer for 6 hours a day. So was the thought then, if the in-person folks were going to school 5 days a week, were they still only getting a couple hours of instruction? I'm not understanding how the two are equivalent in terms of what is being delivered, because it sounds like if the virtual learners were not expected to be online all day, which I completely get, then maybe their level of instruction would have been less than folks that were going to school 5 days a week. So yep. I don't understand.
Yep. So if you consider in a typical school day, there are things like rituals and routines that have to be set up. There are things that have to go on within the classroom that is going to look different for a virtual learner. So as a virtual learner, setting up my classroom space and being prepared and those kind of things happen independently in my own space. But in a classroom, in a physical classroom, the teacher is going to have to work with all of her students and setting up those rituals and routines. So there's some time there that is different, but the expectation is not different as far as by the end of the week, all students are comfortable with engaging in the platform and understanding the health guidelines for their in-person classes, and then also some health and safety for you at home. So the expectation is not different. It's just that it's spread out across the week, or it's condensed into a 2-day period.
Okay, so I get that for the first week, but I guess if this 2-day thing continues beyond 1 week, so first week of school everywhere is a whole lot of introduction and not a lot of new instruction for content. We understand that. But I mean, if this thing continues, what is the actual plan to ensure, because I'm one of the people that chose for my children to go inpatient. Did it again, in person. And I would hate to think that choice that my husband and I consciously made for a number of reasons, a very personal choice, but there are some families that likely felt forced into that choice because of their job. So I would hate for that to be an inequitable thing and they get screwed basically because they chose to go to school if we stick to this 2 days a week in person, and the day that they're not in, they're just doing homework from the previous day. I just want to make sure that they're not getting screwed over because they have chosen to be in person.
Yep. So in the event that this continues, that we stay in a mode where we're not coming every day, then while students are home, there would be the expectation is that there is learning that's happening at home, not just homework from the previous day. So as a teacher, I would build my virtual lessons. What we talked with teachers about during professional development was build your lessons like all of your kids are going to be virtual. Build it that way so that all of your students are getting the same content. Those that are in person with you, there are pieces that you may do live with them or you may do differently with them because they are in person with you. But the students that are at home, they may be experiencing that learning in a different manner. So for example, if I was going to direct teach something, and I needed to show my students how to do it, for my at-home students, I may record myself doing that on a video and have that posted. And so my students would watch that, and then everyone would complete the same activity. And then when I'm online with them live, then I would be able to interact with them and check on their learning. Whereas my in-person students, I may actually complete that direct teach in person with them and then work with them while they're doing their work. So that was the message that we gave to teachers, was it was build your lessons like every student is going to be virtual. And then the pieces with your live your students who are in the classroom with you, you may present things a little bit differently for them than the ones that are at home.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, I have more questions, not about computer or technology,
Sure.
just other things. Do you want me to go ahead, or you want to stay on this topic?
I do want you to in just a second, but I don't want to get too far from Dr. Jones's question before maybe we invite Mr. Poor to come in and talk for just a second about an important issue that Dr. Jones brought up, and that is a concern that several parents have that this improvised week one might last longer than 1 week. Would you want to speak to that, Mr. Poor?
Sure, thank you. And I know that this came late, and we did it in response to what was a concern that was coming from our teacher group, and trying to say, is there a better way for us to slow down just a little bit and ease into the start of the year so that we can learn any type of issue that might come up, especially in the in-person learning, and work through that and do it in a collaborative fashion. In our eyes, we hope that we can work through all those things over the course of the week. We will evaluate those things during this next coming week. The chance of it happening in a second week, I guess there's a possibility, but I don't think it's the main target. We really hope to address those things during this week and then move into really the traditional way that we're going to approach this, both from virtual and in person. So I can't give you 100% thing that says we're not going to use a second week, but I can also tell you there's no way that we go into the third week because we know that this kind of implementation in a measured way can't keep going, that we've got to adjust and go ahead and go full bore. But we do think there's some value, and we think we're going to learn a lot, both from in-person and virtual in this first week, and hopefully that will get us right into then full bore in the second week, and if not, it'd be the third week.
Dr. Jones, I'd pivot to you. Any follow-up with what Mr. Poor had to say?
No, I appreciate the response. I just want to make sure, like I said, from an equity standpoint, that all the students, I think that a lot of the shift and focus was on, virtual education and how are we going to do this in a virtual environment, and which it needed to be because that is the environment that's different than usual. But with this kind of new little monkey wrench, I just want to make sure that the traditional method and the in-person method is not getting lost, and that the children that are doing in-person learning are not suffering from an educational perspective. That's all.
Can I add one more thing onto that, Dr. Jones? I think it's important, and Randy kind of brought it up, and Darian and Hope would back this up, is that all of our teachers at a grade level or within a content area, they're still working in professional learning community environments to plan their lessons for delivery, so that the equity of delivery that Ms. Worsham brought up is going to be happening every day, every week. So there should be, it's not going to be totally uniform between second grade amongst the 30 different campuses, but it's going to be awfully similar because of what teachers do in terms of understanding what the standards need to be and the work that they're doing collaboratively, along with the tool Schoology that allows those resources to be pooled for people to utilize, which creates that kind of equity that you're worried about.
So I have a question. It kind of stays within the curriculum aspect. Before I go to some other things, I've had a lot of questions, and I know earlier we could not answer these questions as we didn't have all the data on who was in person and who was virtual. But I get questions about from families wanting to know if their virtual teacher is going to be the same as the in-person teacher, and if not, is it at least going to be somebody from their school? Are we able to answer that for these people yet?
Oops, I don't know what happened there. Let's see, I may have hit something wrong. I'll start with that and then let the team jump in. You know, one of the things that we're going to do over the course of this next week with this additional time, and especially Wednesday, is to allow us to really evaluate everything. We want to make sure in person that we have safe environments, and that allows those principals to have looked at the classrooms on Monday and Tuesday. I know that we had some people ask us whether or not, why not go two days of A block, Monday and Tuesday, and then they'd be done. But really, if we get to see the students on both the alphabet on Monday, Tuesday, and then again Thursday, Friday, we're going to be able to evaluate. We will then be able to make adjustments as needed. We also are looking at one of the things I promised yesterday in my release was to look at modifications to see whether or not we can support staff who are in a situation where they have some form of health condition that might prevent them from being in a traditional classroom setting, and can we do some things differently? So we will be doing some adjustments on staffing. And I know that Mr. Wood brought this up, I think the month that I brought out of, can we ensure that everyone's going to have a teacher from their building? And I can tell you that we cannot. We can do our very best with that, and the numbers are going to work in a big way towards that. But probably the best example of where that couldn't occur is in small elementaries, where you run into problems, as well as singletons at the high school and the middle school level where there's low numbers. So when you have low numbers and then you're trying to you still have a class size that you've got to develop that's built on the funding model. So we are going to have to make some adjustments in that end that would possibly make it so that a student might have a teacher from another place that's teaching them virtually.
So school starts on Monday. So if my student is virtual, will my student have a teacher on Monday? I mean, or will they have a teacher and it's subject to change?
They will have a teacher, and what I would add to what Mr. Poor said, Mrs. Fox, is the fact that a lot of our schools have already developed their school site plan to provide that virtual learning experience. He did, as Mr. Poor stated, in some cases when we have some smaller schools, we may have two teachers per grade level, and it would be impossible to have a virtual teacher and an in-person teacher without negatively impacting the max number of students. And so that's when, and Mr. Smith and Mr. Rutherford, as well as Mrs. Worsham, have really been proactively meeting with the principals and having their input on what that would look like. And so some of those principals have already started to discuss how they could share a teacher to meet for a grade level or for a subject. And so our goal is to have our curriculum instruction team, along with our teachers. For example, Pinnacle View has started already contacting all of their students. They have determined that they want to do all of their instruction both in person and virtual. And so they're already making contact with their students. But our goal is to have our curriculum and instruction team for this first week during this transition to support our teachers in that transition to virtual learning and in person, because we also know that with any start of the school year, It's very taxing, it's challenging just getting students where they're supposed to be, making sure they're catching the buses, making sure, and then dealing with the additional challenge of dealing with social distancing and physical distancing. We wanted to be supportive of our school staff and making sure that we provided that support. And so our curriculum instruction team is going to take lead in providing those virtual assignments. But our teachers and our principals have been very vocal in saying that they also want to make sure they make that contact. So our students, virtual students, are going to have communication. They're going to be engaged with both our district curriculum team as well as our school level teams. Did that answer your question?
Clear as mud. No. So what I'm hearing is next week is subject, everything's subject to change after next week.
Well, and
as far as who your actual teacher is going to be for virtual.
There may be some shifts. I will be honest and say there may be some shifts, but our goal, and one of the things that Mrs. Worsham and her team have worked towards with our schools is to make sure that there's the least amount of transitions or changes as possible. Hence the reason why the schools have really started to take ownership and saying, this is how much support we need. This is what we're going to do for next week with the support of curriculum and instruction. But like in most instances, in a normal situation, there's always going to be some shifting in teachers, in classes, because we have to level out classes. That happens every year for the first 2 weeks. So students are changing schedules. And so now we have that going on in the in-person environment, but also in the virtual. So to be honest, yes, there may be some shifting to make sure everything is level, but our goal and the work that has been done is to ensure that there's the least amount of changes for our students and teachers as possible.
So can I follow up on that, that as we sit here on Thursday before school starts on Monday, all currently known virtual students have teacher assignments as of right now, right?
Yes, sir. They're in Schoology.
And so the flexibility you're talking about for next week might be students that switch from in-person to virtual. Is that what you're saying?
That could be a change, but it also could be a change where in a particular school, a school may decide that in order for a teacher who's teaching in person not to exceed the maximum 150, we may have to shift some of the virtual students to another, because we still, even though with the virtual learning, we have waivers, the maximum 150 student enrollment was not waived. So we have to make sure that our teachers in the virtual environment as well as in the in-person environment, those teachers do not exceed the 150. And so we will have to take this first week to level that out. So to answer your question, the virtual teacher may change, but we've done a lot of work, Mr. Smith and Mr. Rutherford, Ms. Worsham, with the principals and the teachers to try to alleviate that from happening. But there may be some shifts, but I will tell you, it probably will not be district-wide, but there may be some isolated issues where we may have to change some teachers around.
Ms.
I'd
Cox?
like to add to that, the curriculum instruction staff next week, I've spoken with them, and they know that when they log on with students next week, that they're going to be informing students of this, that I'm not your full-time teacher. I'm here to help you get acclimated with the Schoology environment, to help your first week go well, and you'll be meeting your classroom teacher on Wednesday. And so the idea is that on Wednesday, teachers will interact with their students that they're going to have for the remainder of the year virtually on Wednesday.
I guess I'm a little confused because in a normal school year, when every student is going in person to class, they're all assigned a teacher, they stay with that teacher throughout the year. And so now we have a class of, say, kindergartners, and let's say 10 are virtual and 10 are in person. why wouldn't they have the same teacher? Because when they come back at 9 weeks, where are they going to go if they're not going to their in-person teacher?
Right, and Mrs. Fox, that has been discussed, and so that we planned and ensured that if a student is assigned to a particular school, that those students will stay with that particular school. The change is, and we also have spoken with our technology side to see if we could tag students with 2 teachers if we need to be able to add this student to a different virtual teacher. But the students will continue to be tagged to their assigned teacher at their school, at their assigned school. But we may have to, because of the student, the max number of students, as well as just the realistic expectation of what the teacher should be able to do with teaching. You know, when you think about it, expecting a teacher to teach virtually and in person at the same time. Now, we have some very skilled teachers, but that's very daunting to be able to do that. And so one of the conversations that, the main conversation we've been having was that, what would it look like for us to ensure that the teachers had the most ideal instructional setting to be able to provide instruction for both the in-person and the virtual. And so that's when some of the changes, and that's the reason why some of the changes may take place, is the fact that it may be easier for a teacher in that particular school to take all the virtual students and the other teacher take all the in-person students. But if those students return, then they would still be assigned to their original assigned.
That also allows us to honor some modifications that staff may make. And be honest with you, we were provided legal information early in the summer to say we couldn't do modifications, and then just in the last week that has changed. So, and we've also had that request through the Teacher Association. So we are trying to work with our educators who are saying that they have some health risks. That could be a part of this as well in terms of what we can do with the delivery. So yeah, I think that one of the things Dr. Owa said is this is not a major just blow everything up, but there are going to be some things that need to be tweaked. But that happens every school year. Last year, you know, Mr. Smith, in his very first year as an executive director, and I don't remember how many sections we moved, Mr. Smith, but we moved, if I remember right, 16 teachers in the first week of school. So school started, and then actually we had 5 days of school, and then we moved 16 teachers. Okay, and you know, we do that on a regular basis. It doesn't make people happy, I know that, but it is what we have to do in the school business in order to make sure we have our numbers right.
Well, I appreciate y'all. I have gotten that question quite a bit from parents over the course of the past 2 weeks. So I appreciate you taking that on. I'm going to try and go through some of my other questions real quick. You know, I made clear at the last CAB meeting how I felt about school starting amid COVID and whatnot. I think our numbers were higher at that time because I was for an all virtual start. You know, I'm very thankful that the ACI, Arkansas Centers for Health Improvement, has that dashboard up now, and looking at that gives me a lot of comfort that things are better than they were a couple of weeks ago. So that's good. But since we are going to be in person now, I want to focus on some of the stuff that we're doing in the schools to make sure our buildings are as safe as possible. I've seen a lot of stuff on social media. Can we talk about hand sanitizers for just a minute? Because there's been reports that we are not allowed to use hand sanitizers on children. And I know that's not true. I know that's a function of how much alcohol is in the hand sanitizer and what type of hand sanitizer, because we know some have been recalled. So can someone address that real quick and assure parents that children will be able to clean their hands?
Mr. Owa, are you prepared? Oh, Mr. Yarberry? Yes, I'm happy to jump in. So certainly we don't, we want the students to have the ability to disinfect their hands. And we have not disallowed product. In fact, we have even taken some additional measures to be sure that we have alcohol-based hand sanitizer, and we've done a pretty stellar job, I believe, just this week in distributing PPE, and hand sanitizer was part of that. The district traditionally doesn't provide alcohol-based sanitizer up to this point. So we still got a lot of hand sanitizer out there in the dispensers that we provide. We did not take those down. They're still available. They're still out there. In fact, we've even added some additional hand sanitizer stations for some of the principals that felt like they didn't have enough of them. We have had some PTAs reach out to us to ask about providing touchless sanitizer dispensers, and we are perfectly fine with that. In fact, we worked with a few of them just to be sure that the dispensers that they're providing will accept the product that we use. They come in a certain canister that requires a certain dispenser, and so we've been working with a lot of people and doing different things out there to be sure that we have proper hand hygiene products.
Thank you. Another question that I've been asked, and I've seen on social media, and I've been asked, is plexiglass. You see all these cute little classrooms around the school district where they have these little desk cubes of plexiglass. They've even decorated them and whatnot. So I've heard that we are not allowed to use plexiglass plastic dividers because due to fire code. So can someone explain why other districts can use it and we can't?
Yeah, I'll start on that and then let Mr. Yarberry jump in. We've tried to look at this in a variety of different ways, and you know, there seems to be different opinions within different communities of how a fire marshal will look at it. I will be honest that in Little Rock, we have not specifically gone to the fire marshal to say, would you accept this? We did go though to medical professionals and have them talk to us about, you know, what it would be in terms of the impact of the plexiglass. And the basic thing was that if you put plexiglass in a classroom for a kid, you really then would have to box the student in and have plexiglass all around them, literally, in order for it to be effective. And then you would not be able to have anyone behind them. And then finally, the cleaning of the plexiglass is its own challenge. So many people, the plexiglass is more of a feel-good thing rather than a true barrier for the spread of the droplets. And so the droplets have a way to be able to escape out of those plexiglass situations. And that's what I've been told over and over. I shared that with our elementary principals. There were several of them that were looking at trying to move forward on that. And we made a decision that that wasn't something that we were going to do. Mr. Yarber, anything to add that I may have missed?
Yes, sir. Relative to the comment about the fire marshal, so I think if you compare Little Rock to other districts around the state, what you have to understand is that Little Rock fire marshal has jurisdiction. They are the authority in Little Rock. Whereas where you might have some other districts, smaller districts in rural areas of the state where that's not the case, they lean back on the state fire marshal, and there's a lot of differences in their opinions and about what they feel inclined to enforce and what they don't. I did, in fact, though, have a conversation with the local fire marshal. In fact, they reached out to me because they had some community members that had called them and were asking them about certain things, and so we had a brief conversation about it. And you know, if you really dug into it and looked in the code books and life safety code books and different things, I think what you'll find is that those books will disallow you to use those types of products for various different reasons. One is for egress purposes. If you've got curtains hanging from the ceiling and that those curtains are between the student and the exit of the classroom, that's going to be a problem. You know, when you got a room full of smoke, you know, and you can't see, it can become a problem to have that kind of barrier in space. But also some of the products that are out there, they, depending on what the product's actually made of, if it were to come in contact with an open flame, they can produce noxious gases, and in some cases harmful gases to the human body when they're breathed in. So there's a number of concerns out there, but the fire marshal did in fact he did not was not interested in enforcing a situation where we would be disallowed to use those products. He said he completely understood the challenges that we were up against, and they would be willing to allow us to use whatever products in that area that we chose to use.
Well, that makes sense, because I was concerned why other schools in the district besides Little Rock could use the plexiglass and we could not. So yeah. Thank you for answering that. I'm gonna give y'all a break. I have to say, I know how hard you all are working. I mean, usually in summer you get to slow down just a hair, but you all are constantly recreating the wheel. Principals and teachers are now involved in that. So I want to say thank you. I know this is hard on everybody, and everybody's doing the best we can. So thank you for your efforts, and I'll be quiet and let somebody else have a turn.
Yeah. Any other questions, members of the board?
I do have one more question, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go right ahead.
Okay. Dashboards. When school gets started, and if and when we have a case, I know that we are restricted by HIPAA and how much information we can give out. However, we will be able to give out something, such as Little Rock School District has 4 cases of COVID, 2 in students, 2 in teachers, or whatever. Do we have something decided on how we're going to disseminate that information to the parents and to the public?
Can I start with that one, please? And I may be the best person to respond. We have tried to be very transparent.
Yes.
Clear back from when our first confirmed case came in, and we want to continue to make that commitment of being able to share that, you know, here is a situation, and be able to share in a way that we don't do anything to violate an individual's HIPAA rights. Mm-hmm. We have done a good job, in my opinion, of sharing that we have an athlete. The athlete was at Parkview, or the athlete was at Central High. It's a staff person at Mableville. We have shared that of the number of people that have been quarantined on top of that as a part of contact tracing. We probably have exceeded the I know we have exceeded the standard that's expected of us, but I think our public wants that because it gives them a level of, I don't know if it's comfort or trust that it gets built for them to hear us share those things. When we get a case, we try to share it. It's been in the media, and even me, okay, I felt like I had symptoms a week ago, and I got tested, and it came out the negative test. I got tested again yesterday, which then created an opportunity for me to be back to work because I've had 2 negative tests by the Department of Health to let me go. So, you know, all those things, you know, I hope are signs that we are not trying to be transparent. And I hope that answers your question, Ms. Fox.
It does. I'm just wondering if we're going to have something on our website or something like a little dashboard, like the ADH is now doing, that it's updated regularly on how many active cases or how many cases, and you know, how many people are in quarantine and stuff. I've seen some other school districts already put something like that up. It's easy to read. And so I was just asking for you all to look for some uniform way to disclose that information. I know we've been transparent. I appreciate that. And Mr. Poor, I'll send you a link of this one sample that another school district in Arkansas is doing, and maybe it's something you all can look at.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? Dr. Jones or Ms. Spencer? Well, I think maybe the biggest takeaway from all of this is that a lot of work is being put into it, and think that we're all going to need some flexibility, some patience, some grace next week, and allow systems to develop and allow confidences to grow as we go into the second week of school. I say that, I'm asking that of parents, of teachers, of administrators. Administrators, be patient with parents, you know, be understanding that parents are concerned, and it's not an attack, it's just, you know, defending our kids. But I think that everybody needs to approach next week with a lot of patience and some grace, and let's figure this out, and then have a successful year once we get in stride. All right, well, a good report with regard to school openings. Thank you all very much, very, very much for all the work you're doing on that. You're burning midnight oil a lot of nights, and we appreciate that. It's seen, and it'll be necessary for us to have a good year this year. Next item, Mr. Poor, as we move along, is the district support plan for FYI 2021.
Thank you. This is an action item, members of the CAB, and so we want to present that as you listen. Dr. Owa will be providing you some information. None of we really don't have a whole lot to share that's just brand new. This is just reinforcement of what our plan is, but we do need approval, and I'll turn it to Dr. Owa.
Thank you, Mr. Poor, and Ms. Smith, if you could go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint. CAB members, good evening again. Just as Mr. Poor stated, much has not changed. The most important thing that's changed is the fact that we've added our Ready for Learning plan into that, and that was a requirement from the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. I think we lost our power. So as the priorities are listed, the priorities in our district support plan is to increase the reading achievement. And in short, all districts are, especially ones in level 5 intensive support, are required to have a literacy plan that will support and increase the literacy capacity of all of our students. And one of the accountability or requirements to that literacy plan is that we have a evaluation method, an evaluative method process in how we utilize our ESA funds and other federal and state funds in measuring impact of student growth. And so our literacy program that's listed there is continually updated each year, as well as based on, and the previous slide would have shared this, that what we do at the district level, the district collaborative team, we look at the local school level improvement plans, and then look at all the common areas of focus and need, and then conduct a root out analysis to identify the problems of practice. Then we determine the ways that we can evaluate the level of impact at the school level and then at the district level. And so our district level support plan is a culmination of all the elementary, middle school, and high school plans. And in addition to that, professional learning communities, we've shared information about that. That's one of the requirements that districts must have, and really it's one of the most important pieces in our support plan, because it supports and it reinforces the aspect that teachers have the direct impact on student learning. And so it's important for us at the district level to support the collaborative team conversations and environment for our teachers and for our administrators, because it's important for our administrators to be part of that professional learning community as well and operate as such. And so our support plan indicates that as well. And the last priority, as mentioned, is the fact that we must implement and support the district's Ready for Learning plan by supporting the local school level plans. And of course, it's a living document. So as we receive updated or current guidance from the Arkansas Department of Health and Arkansas Department of Education, we'll make adjustments to our district plan, and the schools will make adjustments or revisions to their plans. Our goals are listed before you. Is to provide that safe, supported, collaborative culture, and we do that by really supporting the collaborative work at our school level as well as the district level. And then we operate in the cycle of inquiry method where we plan, do, check. And so if something's not working, then we want to make sure we come back within that collaborative atmosphere and really look at the data to ascertain what's working, what's not working, and what we're going to do to pivot in supporting the needs of our students and our staff members to ensure growth at the school level. We also want to make sure that we provide that equitable access to high quality teachers. How are we supporting our teachers? What funds are we utilizing to really ensure the increase in teacher capacity as well as leader capacity so that they can support our students as well? And then, as mentioned before, the literacy program that's based on the science of reading. And then lastly, the goal is to implement the Ready for Learning plan district-wide by ensuring that all parents, students, and educators stay informed, they know about it, and they're supported through the process. And lastly, just want to inform all of you that our district support plan is aligned with the school improvement plans. And also one of the important facets or caveats to mention is that it's aligned with our district exit plan. And so we know that we must follow the exit plan. And we have a check-in quarterly with the State Board of Education, as well as they expect to review our progress in December and then at the end of the year. And so our district support plan is in direct alignment with our exit plan. And then as stated, it is also aligned with the Ready for Learning plan. At this time, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
I have a couple, Mr. Wood, if you don't mind me jumping out there again. Not too many. You know, the exit plan in this, I think some of it's going to be challenging given our situation with COVID and in-person and virtual. I guess that really doesn't need to be said. You know, for example, the feet to the seat, attendance. I think we're going to have to be very flexible on attendance this year. But the main question I have is on literacy, and this may be a question for Mr. Rutherford, I don't know, or Worsham, but we did the 95% group at Hall last year, I believe for 9th and 10th graders, is that right? And, you know, from what I hear, and I think the MAP scores, everything was going very well, and those students were excelling, and so I'm very happy about that. So my question is, are we continuing that? But more importantly, a lot of those students have gone to Southwest. So will we be doing that there as well?
So I can take that. The 95% group, you're right, we had some evidence that it was doing very well at Hall. So because of that, Cloverdale has actually agreed to, as part of a grant from, we received should have actually mentioned this. We've received a $2.3 million grant from the Department of Education to support literacy over the next 2 years. And part of that grant, we wrote in for Cloverdale to receive training and support in the 95% group. And so rather than going completely district-wide, we wanted to give it one more year at Hall, and then also knowing that those teachers that were trained at Hall, many of them are at Southwest, and we'll be implementing those strategies at Southwest as well. And then train at Cloverdale, and then have a more intensive pilot there, then look at the data to see if that is something that we want to expand upon.
So we're still doing it at Hall with Fidelity, and we're expanding it to Southwest with Fidelity, and we're starting it at Cloverdale with Fidelity.
So I wouldn't say expanding to Southwest necessarily with training and Fidelity. At Southwest, the teachers that were trained at Hall will continue to implement those strategies in their classrooms. The expansion this year is at Cloverdale to train and to utilize 95% group there.
Do we know how many students that were participating in that have moved to Southwest from Hall?
I do not have the data on that.
I'd be interested to see. I'd hate for them to lose that ground. So thank you. That's all I have about that.
Any other questions from members of the board? This is a significant piece of our effort to return to local control, is it not?
It's in conjunction with it, Mr. Wood. The main piece or plan is that exit plan, and that's why it's so important that this district support plan aligns with that, because when we meet the goals in our district support plan, we're also meeting the goals in our exit plan. So yes, sir, it is a main piece, but we're operating with two different plans, but it was important for us to make sure that they're aligned.
Okay, I understand this is an action item. And so if there's no further discussion with regard to the support plan, then I believe it would be appropriate to entertain a motion on this at this time.
Mr. Wood, I move that the Community Advisory Board recommend approval of the district support plan.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Okay. Second. Yeah, thank you. A motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Okay, hearing none, then those in favor of recommending the district support plan, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, that'll be recommended to Secretary Key that be adopted. Thank you, Dr. Owa, for your work on all of that, and everyone else who's a part of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Porter, the next item is Finance and Support Services.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey will help me navigate this. We do have an action item tonight under this category to seek approval for the opportunity to do a bond refunding and debt extension. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Bailey, but before I do that, I do want to introduce some folks that are in the Zoom with us that will be helping us present. We're very, very lucky to have the Stevens Group as our partners to support our efforts to try to maximize every dollar that is entrusted and that we have an opportunity to try to capture to support our students. That's led by our good friend Jack Trumper, but we also have Leanne Burnett on the line, and also Dennis Hunt, who is, I believe, Jack's supervisor. So it's really nice to have Mr. Hunt too. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bailey to kind of, again, take us a little bit into the topic, but we'll also have Mr. Trumper present.
Okay, can y'all hear me okay? Not good. Okay, I'm gonna leave my video off. I think that might have been slowing my connection down some, but what we have before you, we talked about last month as well. So what we have, we pretty much have spent all our second lien capital improvement funds. It's time to continue that work throughout the district. So in order to do that, we must raise additional funds for capital improvement. The proposal we have here and we've discussed would actually extend our current debt service mills out 18 years from 2033 to 2051. And have some documents here. And Mr. Trumper, you can jump in at any time you get ready. But hopefully all the board members have gotten an opportunity to actually review the actual package we sent over. We're going to be asking for a vote at the end of the various aspects of this actual package here. But our hopes are to raise upwards of about $200 million to help with some of those improvements we couldn't actually get to with the 92 million we actually utilized this past, I guess, 3 years right now. So I'm gonna scroll down up this process, and Mr. Trump, if you want to chime in on this, this gives actually kind of overview of the summary of what we actually asking for. Of course, the voters would actually have to vote on this November 3rd. We have a lot of voters out on the poll, especially with that being main election, along with 9 board slots being available.
Can you all hear me okay?
We can, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is just, first of all, good to be with you all this evening. This is just a step that every school district has to do every year before their annual school election, which is to approve a proposed budget of expenditures, which would be for the next fiscal year. So in this case, 2021, 2022, and then that budget has got to be published at least 60 days before the election, and that cutoff date is coming up, which I believe is September the 4th. So this is the first step of approving the proposed budget that starts the election process.
I have the dates on the screen, of course.
Right now, there's a little more involved than just a budget. This is extension of the millage, though, as well.
Sure.
That is right.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wood. What that proposed budget does, of course, once it's approved, then of course, ballots have got to be prepared. The notice of elections got to be prepared, which would be sent to the Pulaski County Election Commission, which all those documents actually will have those prepared for the district. But this is just the first step.
I'm scrolling a little slower so people watching can kind of see us.
So when we did this in May of 2017, the school district had to pay for that election essentially. The measure failed, and so the school district went through the effort that it did, paid for the election, essentially lost, and it was a waste of time and money. Given that this election, that this decision would be on the November 3rd general election ballot, what is the cost to the school district to have this on the ballot?
It's no cost to have it on the ballot. It's just an additional part of the ballot. We pay for all school board elections. I mean, every time it's the polling place, so they actually send us a bill. So typically in the past, it's ranged about $40,000 annually, depending on the polling sites.
Can I interrupt though, Kelsey? This time, if I understand correctly, will be the first time that a school board election for the Little Rock School District has occurred in a November general election. Is that right?
It is, yes.
So are we still on the hook for paying for part of the election?
As far as I know, we have been in the past. I'm sure the election commission will probably send us a bill for it, which they typically have. I'm not sure what to expect. The only thing I can kind of tell you in the past, we paid roughly about $40,000 in the election year. Sometimes when we actually had a board in place, they might have voted to limit the amount of polling sites, and that cut down on some of the costs. But anywhere it ranged anywhere from about 20-something thousand up to 40-something thousand a given year. Not sure what to expect this, but
and Mr. Wood, I've got a call tomorrow with Mr. Brian Poe with the Pulaski County Election Commission, and I can ask him some of those questions as well and get that information to Mr. Bailey.
Okay. I mean, for our purposes tonight, tomorrow might be just a little bit too late, but it does sound like we have a school board election anyway, and so this would just be one more question that's part of the school's part of the ballot.
I'm sorry to interrupt, if I could, this proposed budget that you see here, this language is going to be very, very similar to what's on the ballot. This is very similar to what is done every year. So Arkansas Constitution, you have to vote, each school district has to vote on the tax every calendar year. And so what this budget does, it talks about the total number of mills, the 32 mills for operation and maintenance, the 2 mills for dedicated maintenance and operation, and then the 12.4 mills for debt service. So you're absolutely correct. I mean, this ballot, other than what we're asking for, which is the restructuring of existing debt and the extension of mills, the actual tax rates would be the exact same as it would be any year.
Okay. So the effort of asking the public to approve the millage extension, there's no financial loss here in our effort to ask for this. Win or lose, we're out the same money for the November.
If we don't ask, it's just a lost opportunity.
Right.
Nothing financial.
Okay. Do you want to break down and explain the particulars with regard to the money that we're asking the public to support here?
And I'll let Mr. Trump, if you want to go over this application here real quick, because it explained the 329 million versus what we actually are looking at.
Sure, would be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. So what we did was, in the process, the question was, how much money can the district raise by restructuring debt and extending the debt service mills? So what our mission is to not change to any major degree what the current payment the district is making at this time. And so the strategy that we came up with was to take the 2015 bonds, December 1, 2015 and the December 15, 2015, and restructure those and extend those bonds out where we're basically spreading out that payment. And then what we're doing is we're taking the new money portion and we call this a wraparound approach, where we're making the payment lower in the front end, and then when the bonds pay off in 2033, the annual payment of around $21.4 million that you're currently making, that would continue on to 2033, and then of course out another 18 years to 2051. So in this bond application, what you see here, this is kind of a maximum number, if you will, because the December 1, 2015 outstanding balance is a little over 101 million. The December 15, 2015 issue is a little over 15 million. And so then we have to put in what we call cost of issuance, underwriter's discount allowances, escrow contingencies, anyway, real conservative cost estimates. And you can see that 7.8, but a big part of that covers the paying off the principal and interest of the two issues that were done in 2015. And then the goal was to net a minimum to the district of 205 million in construction funds based on our interest rate assumption that you see there of 2.85%. And so what this is going to the department and also to the voters to get a maximum authorization of the 329,185,000 to pay off the December 1, 2015 and the December 15, 2015 issue, to pay the cost associated with the transaction, and then to net the district the required construction funds. And so what we do in there is we have to make some assumptions on what we think a winning bidder would make. And in this particular case, we used 1.5%. That would be probably, we think, a conservative number, but we've got to have the authorization because we can always go down, we just can't go up. And then when we look at the payoff of the two issues in 2015, we call that, we sized them to basically what we call gross fund those escrow accounts. So what that means is these issues can be paid off February 1 of 2021. So we said, okay, from December to February, how much money has to be there to pay off those issues, including principal and interest? And so we've sized them to be a maximum amount, where our goal will be to take a principal amount of dollars and invest those funds where we have interest earnings, which will be able to downsize our borrowing. And I know this is a lot, but this is kind of one of those numbers which it's a not to exceed number, which the goal would be a lower borrowing, but to still achieve the goal of getting the district the $200 million in construction funds. Let me stop for a minute. Like I said, I know that's a lot, but let me see what questions you all may have, Mr. Wood.
Any questions from members of the board regarding the presentation so far, the millage extension vote proposal?
No questions so far. I'll probably have some comments and questions at the end.
the application that you see here is a standard process for every voted bond issue, or most every construction bond issue that goes to the State Department.
Yeah.
And so these different forms that you see are just part of what we call the application package.
Okay. Dr. Jones, Ms. Spencer, any questions from you all?
No questions for me.
Okay. Mr. Bailey, I assume that it's important to discuss, maybe not in great detail, but the need for the $200 million.
Definitely. I want you to look at this last page here, and I'm going to jump over to an actual spreadsheet real quick, kind of show you. But these are some estimates on potential funds we could actually raise while maintaining our same debt service level of payment here. Let me grab another. Are y'all able to see that as well on the screen, the potential capital?
Yes.
So just going to review this. This one actually from 2017, and some of these projects we had to cut off, like you all know that we're redoing. I already have designed the McClellan. We converted over to K8 and bring Cloverdale over there. But some of the things we're talking about that's very relevant right now, you hear a lot of things with ASHRAE and different things with COVID, talking about the ventilation and things like that. So our buildings are average, 60 to 70 years old. So a lot of our mechanical systems are, won't say all of them are 60 or 70 years old. We have some boilers that are close to there, but in order to actually bring in more fresh air and do some of the things and use the higher rated filters, the MERV 13s and maybe up to the 15s, you have to actually replace some of those mechanical systems out there. So this would actually bring some of those mechanical systems in that we didn't get a chance to replace with our 92 million. We really had to just cut this back quite a bit because we were proposing 170 million coming in. Of course, we used a lot of money up for our new Southwest High School. We still have, roofs to replace. We pretty much we cut out the actual window replacements. We did get a chance to do all the AC in the gyms and the kitchen areas, which I think was a major improvement for us throughout the district. We went and actually did some capital improvement with energy savings where we replaced LED. We still need to really replace all the lights in the district and go to LED. That actually saves quite a bit of money and pays for itself pretty quick. But we would actually kind of try to finish up some of these things. And of course, we need to sit down and put some priority on what other projects we want to actually take on. I know there's a facility blueprint out there that Mr. Ford shared with the public, I believe, a year and a half ago. So, of course, like the conversion of J Fair to a K8 as well. That's not going to be a major dollar amount, but $1 million when you don't have $1 million is $1 million. So this would give us actually funds to do some of those, to go through it and then do some flooring enhancements and different things throughout the district. So technology is a big part as well. So we had a major influx of funding when the stimulus money came to us in 2009-10, where that's when we actually put in smart boards. Those smart boards are 10 years old now. They're going to flat panels and other things right now. So it's time to really reinvest in some additional technology in our classrooms throughout the district. So it's a lot. Of course, we hadn't budgeted all the 200 million, but there's definitely $200 million worth of needs in the district. So we'll get to talking about, different enhancements, maybe central. We have a lot of needs essential. Just windows essential. We did some actually National Park Service grants of $500,000, but that didn't go too far when you're talking about a building of that size. So things like that still need to be discussed, that we will have sit downs with the board.
Mr. Bailey, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Our millage right now, we have the 32 mills for maintenance and operation, or what
yes,
is
ma'am.
And then we have the 12.4, and then we have a 2.0 mills for, isn't that dedicated for technology?
Well, one is dedicated for technology and one is dedicated for capital improvement. So one actually goes towards maintenance and the other goes toward the technology refreshes and
software.
So that 2.0 goes to technology and capital improvement?
Yeah, so you have
And
$1 million.
The 12.4 goes to debt service, is that correct?
That's correct, that's correct.
But of the debt service money coming in is more than our debt service, correct?
That's correct. So the surplus is typically used for operation. Well, it is used for operation. Yes.
So half of that money, of that 12.4, is going to debt service, and the other half is just being funneled into operations, not
Yes.
facilities.
No, some of for facilities. So you have your utilities and you have your custodial contracts.
I meant
not for capital improvement.
Or
no,
reducing principal amounts or anything like that.
No, actually used for daily operation.
And the 2.0 is used for building maintenance and technology.
So the you have 2 mills, so 1 mill is actually dedicated purely for technology.
And how much is that usually a year?
It produces, I guess, based on the assessment here, you would be looking at a 3.9 million. That's at 100% collection, but you have to part that down based on maybe a 96% collection. So about, I'd say 3.6 to 3.7 million a year.
And have we been spending that on technology every year?
Yes, ma'am, way above that, yeah. Just well, so you have
technology. We're realizing our deficit in technology right now.
Yeah, that doesn't. We've done some smart things with our technology where we got away from actually replacing so many CPUs and went to a virtual, like where you have a server and you have terminal stations that in an actual lab that's actually hitting a server instead of individual CPUs. But really, we just have a lot of district-wide software as well that comes out of telephone upgrades and different things like that. So,
well, I'll tell you that. I mean, I know this is an unusual year, and I'm going to support this because I'm going to let the voters decide. We aren't locking ourselves into what we're spending the money on. No. We're just voting to send it to the polls, right?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. And we've done, I think, a stellar job as a district over the last 10 years capitalizing on when the market has presented opportunities with bond refunding.
I'll definitely agree with that. But, we're extending. I mean, basically, we're making this 12.4 a permanent tax, basically. And it's not going to cost the taxpayer any more money, which is great. But I'd like to see more of that money used for our facilities, because everybody needs a great new building like Southwest.
Yeah.
One thing I would add to comment that you made, Ms. Fox, is nothing's been dedicated. There is one thing for sure that has to happen as a priority, and that is recreating McClellan and dealing with Cloverdale, because that is a part of our lawsuit settlement, that any new construction project has to begin there. So that is one commitment that the district does have.
Well, we need to look at Hall too. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that by a lawsuit, that's the one thing that has to be there.
We have one lock-in, and that's McClellan, moving Cloverdale to McClellan, rebuilding McClellan.
I have one comment. Is I guess we won't be locking in forever, but typically when you have a district with buildings as old as ours, even when 2033 come, we decided we're never going to put any more money into the building. I guess we would be closing shop, but most districts extend those debt service mills because either the population are growing or the buildings are getting older, and you have to start replacing some of those things that aren't easily seen. So you see roofs, you see the flooring and stuff, but you don't see all the mechanical rooms and the plumbing and electrical stuff that needs to be upgraded, because our buildings were built in 70 years ago. We didn't have one-to-one technology throughout, things like that. So.
But let me ask this, because I'm like Ms. Fox, I'm going to support this. I'm certainly, in favor of anything that lets the voters decide, and I do think that we have a lot of priorities. And I was in favor of the effort in, 3 years ago, and we only addressed a third of the issues we had then with what we have. But as we build new buildings like Southwest, big, beautiful, unbelievable, amazing facility, do we not build into our budget essentially a savings account that we know the roof is going to go bad at Southwest High School in however many years? I don't know what that is. I don't know what that number is, but somebody knows that in 15 or 20 years you have to do major roof renovations. Are we saving for that? Are we planning for that with the regular budget that we have? I mean, there's a little bit of it that, you know, you go get $200 million and then you lose it in roofs and elevators. And I'm not saying that's lost. I'm not saying that's not important, because certainly it is, and we want all of our learning conditions to be solid and wonderful places to learn in and accessible to everyone. But when you go get this much money, you really want to get to the end of those projects and feel like you got something great to hold up and look at, that you got your money's worth. And certainly we're going to get that at McClellan when that is a new facility. But you know, $150 other million worth of you know, bathroom renovations is just, I think sometimes people have a hard time getting excited about that.
Yeah, sometimes, unless you're a student there at one of the schools. So one of the things we struggle with in Little Rock is we're playing catch up. We can't wait, you know, 10 years between doing major initiatives to go, because your buildings are 10 years older again. So we have too longer spans between actually bringing in significant amount of money for facilities. So I think one day we'll get there, but over the last, you know, 7-8 years, we had to deal with the DSEC wind down and everything else, along with, you know, student population going down. So it's hard to create a savings there. We've done a great job. I don't think you all have had many complaints about the warm, safe, dry environment in the district. I know when Ms. Fox was on the board, you know, initially I mean, we used to get complaints about a lot of roofs and whatever else that came about. Stimulus money
and
helped
bathrooms.
us. Bathrooms, yeah, there was a lot of bathrooms. So we caught up some of those. They're not, you know, all where they need to be at. We've been fortunate that some of our roofs have lasted beyond the useful life, where you may have a 20-year useful life on them. We're getting 25 and 30, maybe even 35 years due to the patching and different other things. But it's just really time to make a major investment within our capital improvement in our buildings and our students. So,
can I jump in real quick, Mr. Wood?
Sure, of course.
I think part of the other part of that is that the products that we choose when we do these renovations, I think, is critical to support what you're bringing up. You know, the sustainability of our buildings is just not where it should be. The products that we've chosen over the year for different various reasons, I would assume a lot of it's budget related. You know, we've put a lot of effort and a lot of energy into the products that we're choosing for these projects. And, you know, where, you know, we might have chosen a roof, you know, 15 years ago that had a life of 10 or 12 years, and we're now realizing that problem now and having to go back and replace those. And, you know, the roofs that we've done in the last few years now, we're choosing products that have, you know, 30-year warranties on them. Now they're not a metal roof, obviously, but we are choosing products. While they might cost us a little bit more on the front end, they will give us many more years of life before we have to circle back around and replace them again.
Yeah.
A good example of that, Mr. Yarberry and Mr. Wood, you did a tour of Dunbar. And remember last spring of us showing you the roof, and you know, obviously that's a roof that we still have to address, but there were, Mr. Yarberry was able to point out the kind of the quick fix approach on our roof there, and how that did not hold up for a very long span of time. It didn't do that 30-year, it was more like a 10-year, and maybe not even 10 years of quality.
It was
I hope we get that roof fixed for Miss Alice Kuntz's sake. She will be very happy.
We actually have somebody designing that roof for us now, so we'll be that will be our next roof major roof project, assuming that we have funding become available. So yeah, we'll be ready for it.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want my comments to be any way construed as that's not important, because students going to school in a dry environment and an environment that doesn't stink just because it rained on Sunday is important, and I want that. It's just we got a lot of aging infrastructure, even aside from the maintenance we're talking about here. And we got 40 buildings in our district, and how many of them are over 50 years old? And how many of them are 70 years old? And we got over in the next 20 years, we got a lot of buildings that might need to be completely replaced, you know? And so got a lot of planning to do, a lot of discipline to invoke, to be prepared to meet those needs.
Definitely.
But nonetheless, I support this. I support the voters getting to decide. I support a fresh Little Rock School Board getting to make, you know, solid decisions on where we're going to invest in improving our infrastructure. And so I'll support this. Any other questions or discussions from Ms. Spencer or Dr. Jones? I understand this is an action item, so I think there's probably going to be a motion in a minute, but certainly want to have everyone's questions answered if there are any.
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jones. All right, well then, if you and Ms. Spencer will come on here, I think it'd probably be appropriate to entertain a motion at this point.
I want the motion, but I'm going to read it because it's going to be a long one.
Sure.
And I move that the Community Advisory Board recommend approval of the board resolution, proposed budget of expenditures, application for a permit to issue bonds, the Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportation School Construction approval forms, and the municipal advisor agreements.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a long motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion?
Trying to get it all in the same motion.
That's right. All right, hearing no discussion, then we'll go to a vote. Those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, then that will be recommended to Secretary Key, that he adopt that and that we move forward with the vote on that in November.
Mr. Wood, if I could, I'd just like to finish this topic off again, that I want to thank the Stevens group for the work that they do for us, and the preparation. It's always very thorough, and you have a great deal of confidence in that. I try to always push Jack and Kelsey, because I always want to say, hey, what's the interest rate today? Because, you know, right now, you know, a part of why we're doing this is a favorable market. And so this makes sense. A second thing that I hope makes sense to our community is that when you've entrusted us with resources, we've handled them well. Think about Pinnacle View. We don't even talk about Pinnacle View right now. That's an amazing facility that's now, in its fourth year of existence, third year, I guess, of existence. And then we've got Southwest. We've got air conditioning units in every gym. You know, that was not even possible. Security systems throughout our school district. We stretch that dime like nobody's business to do what's best for kids. And I'm very appreciative then of Kevin and Kelsey and their staff and a whole bunch of other folks that made that possible. So I just wanted to add that in, and I hope it's talking points that we can all use and engage in with our public as this moves forward and we go towards November.
I ditto that. Pinnacle View was a great accomplishment for us, because we didn't actually have to sell any bonds or anything. We actually were able to, you know, cut in other areas and actually utilize our internal savings along with some operating and actually build that school and get it done. So along with purchasing the property. But thank you all for your support. We'll make sure we utilize the money, you know, we will in the best possible manner we can, in most efficient manner.
All right, budget update. Is there anything additional? I don't know.
I'm gonna share one more right now, because we actually are finalizing the year end. These are preliminary numbers right now. This is typically forwarded to you. I didn't forward this period 13 because we're still adjusting interest, but As you can see on the screen, these are our revenues that we came in, and just overall, just if I was to combine the top, I guess 5 lines here, or 6 lines that include all our local property taxes, our projection came in about $4 million short. I think we talked about that last month due to most likely COVID and the payments being a little lax coming in from some of our patrons. Hopefully they will make that up later on in this year. So that was a shortfall as far as revenue. I'll scroll down to some of the expenses as well.
Kelsey, also on revenue, can you give us a 1-minute update on the box store issue?
That may be Eric. I hadn't heard anything lately about it. I think it's been a couple of months. I'm not sure where it is as far as, and Mr. Walker maybe, or Mr. Poor, if you've heard anything. Have y'all, either one of y'all?
Sure. I'll add in real quick that we filed to try to allow ourselves to be part of the case. I hope I'm saying that right, Mr. Walker. I'm probably putting it in layman's terms, and we were denied that opportunity, which was interesting because we're the district, out of all the entities in Pulaski County, we would be impacted with the highest degree of a change in terms of how that money would come into our district. But we were not allowed under a judge's review to be an active participant. Is that a good way to say it, Mr. Walker?
Right to intervene.
That's correct, yes. It was a motion to intervene that was denied. And it wasn't just Little Rock School District. I believe the Central Arkansas Library System also moved to intervene, and that was denied as well.
As of right now, though, we're not receiving those funds. Is that correct? That's just, it's going into a separate account that the county is holding?
Yeah, not the funds that they actually are protesting. So,
right, exactly. And so then when one day comes, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and that case is over, and if we were to win that, we would have a piggy bank with a lot of money in it that would get delivered to us, correct?
We'll have some additional funds. It wasn't a lot. When we actually went back and looked at the calculation, the portion that we were looking at was the total value, I think, but we were only needing a 20% assessment. So when all the districts brought together, that wasn't made clear. So it's not as much, but all funding is important for us. So
yeah,
it won't be a windfall. But the big thing, if we win this, hopefully other stores may try to do it as well, but they won't have precedent set already.
Okay.
And we're still working on closing this year out. So really, where we are on budget, we have our state aid notice, our preliminary state aid notice, where we're working quite a bit on personnel changes right now with the schools closing and with the hiring of Southwest. So sent out lists. We're doing a lot of cleanup right now. So hopefully we'll have a better idea in the next week and a half where we are for this upcoming year. We really got to put some projections out there for our upcoming revenue with COVID-19 still here, and kind of we're gonna have to take a very probably conservative approach to our projections, not knowing how it's affected businesses and personal finances in our household. So we'll actually have some follow-up on next month as well, very detailed, and pretty much be ready to rock and roll for wrap up our budget, I believe. So. And I'm just scrolling through, and I actually get you all a finalized. We're scheduled to actually close out this fiscal year, maybe on tomorrow or early on next week. It's due on our Cycle 9 report by the 31st.
How are we looking as far as end of year balance goes?
Scroll down. So if you
do we have any money left that we're surprised we have left, or expenses that we weren't expecting?
Not really. So if you look at our total general fund here, this includes all our categorical funds as well. And I just ran this like an hour ago. So we were at 24 million. I know we had to transfer money over to operating because we had the FF&E that we had planned on spending for Southwest. So right now we're looking at that as about 21.1 million still out there. I think most of the interests have been made. So as we go through all our accounts payable and invoices, those that the services or products we received prior to June 30th, we have to accrue them back to the past fiscal year. So that's what our staff is currently doing now. So we're still going to be in the $20 million range as far as the fund balance on our general operate. That's typically only thing we have liquidity to do anything with. The other things you see down here, we pretty much have zeroed out. You can see our funds here. If you see it on the screen, zero balance is there. A dedicated funds here, pretty much have zeroed them out as well. So this is for past year. Of course, these 6 is actually federal funds. So that's pretty much where we are. No big surprises. The biggest surprise is that our revenue didn't come in where we expected, because if that would have came in, we'd have pretty much been up on our actual fund balance a little bit. So because we had those expenses that were cut, like the transportation, along with some of the fuel costs and some of the sub costs.
Kelsey, is this budget attached to our agenda?
This one is not, because it's purely preliminary.
Okay.
Once we finalize this on next week, I'll get it sent back out to you. So.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the reasons I asked that question, what is, and this is going to change the conversation just slightly, but it's still important, I think, with regard to morale as we deal with all the things we're dealing with right now. What is the expectation for teachers with regard to tomorrow? I understand that tomorrow's a non-contract day. Is that correct?
That question.
Yeah, that's correct for most teachers. The not teachers who are above, or employees who, and Mr. Bailey, you may know the actual contract length, but most of our teachers are on that contract where they're off tomorrow.
So I believe the 9 1/4 to 190-day contract employees are off on tomorrow. Those above that, we have some teachers that are actually 10 months in different other programs, the CTE teachers, I believe. I'm not sure if they're working or not. I know custodials and the clerical staff and everybody else is in the district, the principals, administrators.
Yep. Well, I ask because I can't imagine in this environment that our teachers are not going to be working.
Yeah, a lot of them probably will show up.
One way or another. I think they're going to be in buildings, or they're going to be working their butts off at home, preparing for all the things that are being thrown at them. I'd like us to see if we can find a way to pay them for their work tomorrow. I think they deserve that, and I'd like us to make that a priority. If we get to the end of year budget and there's money there that we didn't expect them to have to work when this year was laid out, no doubt. No one thought that everything was going to be upside down. But I think that it's the least we could do to pay them for a day that we know they're working. We know they're working their tails off, and I don't think we should take advantage of that if we can.
And Mr. Wood, if I can provide some context to that, that was a change when the start of school was pushed back. One of the major considerations was giving our teachers, our staff members, time to have off right before the start of school, because we knew that we were front loading a lot of professional development days. And so we were requiring a lot out of them. And so we didn't want them working up to the 9th hour, because as you stated, they're going to go above and beyond. Just like in a normal year, they're going to be trying to come to school on Saturday and Sunday before that first day. But we wanted to show our teachers that we appreciated their hard work, and we knew that we were expecting a lot out of them. And so we had that Friday, tomorrow, off as a off day for them, so that they would have time to relax. And if they decide to come to school, they were not required to be there the entire day. So they had some flexibility. But that was the reason why we built that day into the calendar.
And I totally understand that, and I applaud that effort to give them, but I think the reality of the situation is nobody can take a day off. I mean, they're probably very stressed about leading into Monday, and everybody is working their tails off, including everyone in your building. But
in every building all over the city, people are working their butts off. And I just, you know, I understand the effort. I get it. And it was a good gesture, but it was probably planned in a time when we didn't anticipate all the things that we would be dealing right before school starts. So take that for what it's worth. To the extent y'all can do that, I think that would be a just a minimal gesture we could do for our people that are working so hard to get this year started the right way.
Mr. Wood, can I share the COVID spreadsheet with you all as well? I forgot to share that. Take 1 minute.
Yeah, you don't have to ask me, but can someone put that up for him? Or I guess maybe Mr. Bailey, you can do it, right? Yeah.
So just wanted to show you all this. I think we updated you on last time on our orders here. So pretty much only thing we're waiting on are Chromebooks right now and our amplified systems. And we are waiting on 2 more million of our regular 3-ply masks, but we were able to distribute 1.5 million of those masks out on this week. So we have distributions going out tomorrow, mainly sanitizing wipes to all the schools we got in. So actually, Mr. Yarberry, I know his staff we actually got the electrostatic backpack sprayers in as well. So they delivered those or started to deliver those today. I think they'll continue those on tomorrow on Friday. So with those, there comes some training with the head custodian, whoever receives those. We actually have all the solution in. So we pretty much have all our PPE in now. We're still waiting on 2 million masks, but they should be here shortly. But 1.5 million should get us to the next month or so at least. Sanitize everything is out there.
So, Mr. Bailey, all this stuff that's come in, with the exception of some of the masks that aren't here yet, has been deployed to the schools?
Yes, ma'am. All except the wipes. So we got the wipes in, I believe, this morning.
They're going tomorrow.
They're going out while they're packing. Yeah, they're starting to pack trucks up this evening. And our warehouse. I have to give shout out to our procurement department. They've worked, overtime to get things out. And they were trying to pack up trucks today. They're going to be there first thing in the morning, getting those wipes rolled out to the school. They're taking these cases and dropping them off. We got departments. So I actually went and picked up our stuff for admin building along the RC today. So we have departments that'll be coming by picking up some of their PPE tomorrow as well, and some of that's delivered. But backpack sprayers are going out there as well, like I said. But yeah, schools should be well prepared with PPE now.
Very good.
We also have PPE for buses as well. We delivered all the hand sanitizer for them. We had initial order for the masks there. I think they've been picking up some additional masks tomorrow to make sure our drivers along with first student drivers have sanitizer and masks for our students that will be boarding the bus. That's it for me for tonight, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. That was very good information right there. I think it's good to show everyone the depth of the PPE that we have. I know I appreciate the school district responding to some stuff that, some things that got shared early in the week that weren't quite, might have been accurate at the moment, but the school district certainly responded and has a lot of stuff coming to get our buildings as prepared as possible. Well, the next item then, Mr. Poors, the emergency COVID leave consideration. I believe this is an action item as well for members of the board to consider. Mr. Walker.
Good evening. I want to say a couple things real quick first. You all have been looking at Section 8 of the policy manual, and it is not back before you this particular month. The PPC, classified PPC, although they've got copies of it, they still wanted to meet together to discuss. In addition to that, the ASBA updates have come out, so I wanted to go ahead and add the revisions and give the PPC an additional time to look at those as well. And so instead of kind of waiting till the next cycle, I'm starting the next cycle with Section 8 since it's still pending. And something I like to say every year is that those of you all who've been around as long as I have, you all have adopted the conversion of the ASBA model policies and revised it 3 times in the time that I've been here, which I think is a pretty cool thing. every year to say, but so I just want to point that out before I get into the policy for tonight. Tonight we are looking at the personnel policies that we received ASBA model policies on yesterday, along with a commissioner's memo. This is specifically school employee COVID-19 emergency leave. And to address Ms. Austin's question from the beginning, she mentioned that Ms. Eason, provided information on COVID leave. That leave that she was discussing in that program is under FFCRA, which stands for Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And that's the kind of leave. And this leave is in addition to the FFCRA leave. This is an additional 10 days of paid leave for employees, teachers, and school employees. And the commissioner's memo indicates that school districts are required to have a policy that addresses the emergency leave. And this was announced during one of the governor's press conferences a couple weeks ago. But the commissioner's memo COM 21-014 is the mechanism that is directing school districts to adopt it. And my apologies that you got this today, but we received it just yesterday. And so the policy itself just kind of goes into, there's a section of FFCRA that is very comparable. The 10 days can be a part of FFCRA, but this is in addition to it, that deals with if someone is quarantined, if they're testing positive, if they're experiencing symptoms and seeking medical diagnosis, close contact, and they're not able to work remotely. And this policy just goes into, what's involved in that. This is something that is separate from the leave that, your sick leave, your personal leave, your vacation time, that kind of thing. This is in addition to that, and it is in addition to the FFCRA leave as well. And this policy ultimately just explains it, and it was given to us by the ASBA, and there's some minor tweaks with every model policy that have to be made so that it fits into our manual consistently with the other policies. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address that. But this is also, and one thing I meant to say, and there's a waiver due to the Ready for Learning plan where these policies do not have to go to the PPC for the 10 days, and it doesn't require the staff vote for it to become immediately effective. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
But the PPC saw it because Ms. Austin talked about it and she had a question about it. Do you know if you can answer her question?
Yes, I just answered that earlier. This is in addition to the leave that Jordan Eason talked to her about in the video. So this is 10 additional paid leave days in addition to what Ms. Eason talked about. So classified and certified PPC received a copy of this today.
And just a procedural question here. Since this is coming from a commissioner memo, so we're recommending approval to commissioner of this policy? Is that what we're recommending tonight?
In essence, I mean, what I guess I'm asking is that you guys authorize the superintendent to go forward with the requirements of the commissioner's memo COM 21-014.
Can I bring up something here, Ms. Fox? Because I think you and I may be on the same mindset, and so I didn't get to look at the proposed motion, and it's a little different than where I thought it might go to, because I think what you're trying to do as a community advisory board tonight is understand that this is being added. You're recognizing that this policy has to be added as a part of a state mandate, and it's really not granting me anything. It's just saying that we have to make this adjustment. And so I believe the administration would be friendly if you wanted to modify it, or between Mr. Walker and myself, I think we could offer a little bit different wording if we need to.
Well, can we just not adopt the policy?
Can I chime in on that as well?
Sure.
We have to have a policy. So the biggest difference between the FRCRA is that it's federal and it's mandated, and there's no reimbursement to the district. So you're mandated to give the employee 10 days if they can. I believe the caveat is they don't have the ability to remotely work. On this, the governor actually allocated $20 million on a reimbursable basis for districts, so it doesn't put an extra burden on districts or on the employees. So if they need additional 10 days off, the district actually sends them reimbursement. But I think you got to have a policy in place for us actually to utilize that funding piece and actually request reimbursement. But once the 20 million is gone, the state may use the 20 million in a month or so. It's up to them to maybe do a reallocation if they choose to. Otherwise, that funding is gone. But the caveat is that they must not be able to work remotely. It's always an and in there, and not be able to work remotely. So if a person can telework, they don't actually need this leave. They can just telework. So.
Well, are we ready for motions, or do other people have questions?
Any other questions from members of the board? Dr. Jones, Ms. Spencer, either of you have any questions about this leave policy? All right, hearing nothing from them. I can't see them with the view I currently have, so I don't know if they've come back onto the screen yet or not. If not, if y'all would, Ms. Spencer and Dr. Jones, so we can hear you as we entertain a motion. Yeah, now would be an appropriate time for a motion.
I move that we adopt policy 3.30A and policy 8.23A and allow the superintendent to act upon those immediately.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Okay. A motion and a second. Any discussion about the motion? All right, hearing none, then we'll go to a vote. Those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, we will recommend to the secretary that he adopt the policy that he told us to adopt. Dueling roles. Okay, that brings us near the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your work on that. I know that was a quick turnaround. Any comments from members of the board?
I just want to say thanks to everybody again for working so hard, and it's a hard time, and the teachers and the principals and the custodians and bus drivers and everybody that's doing what they can to try and get school started.
I'll second that for sure. We know you guys have been working hard, so thank you so much for all of your efforts. Certainly appreciate it.
Mr. Wood, if I can jump in, I want to thank our two medical experts. You know, Dr. Jones and Ms. Spencer are front and center on a regular basis that I get to see, and I hope our public gets to see their contributions to our state and to our community to help create a better environment, whether it's Ms. Spencer helping out with testing options and environments throughout our state that are impactful and opportunities for healthcare, and then Ms. Jones helping create guidance in terms of steps that we're taking within the state to protect everybody. And we're very lucky to have both of you, and it's pretty cool to have you on our community advisory board as well. So thank you for your efforts. LaShannon was big wigging it this week, Governor's Mansion, Deborah Burks, you know, she was sitting right next to, I think, the governor and Ms. Burks.
But no, you know, Chairman Woods, the reason why Dr. Jones and I have been silent, because she's been drilling me on COVID testing. And she's just been asking me all these hard questions because she's concerned about all the kids in the school district. And so she's drilling me like, LaShannon, what's the protocols? What's in place? So if you've seen our face silent tonight on camera, that's because she's been texting me asking multiple questions with her public hat on. So that's why.
I think they are making some advances on testing for kids. I saw the Mr. Poore, did you see the meeting today, the legislative meeting? And so they're serious about it, and are going to try and make it happen sooner rather than later.
But she's holding all of us accountable from that public health department perspective. So that's why she's drilling me on a lot of the questions.
Well, I'm gonna piggyback on what Mr. Poor said. Mr. Poor, I appreciate you telling both of them. Thank you. Y'all have enough to do with all that's going on. Dr. Jones, Ms. Spencer, both of you, and for y'all to take time out and to help the Little Rock School District in the midst of all this. Nobody knew when y'all joined this cab that a global pandemic was going to strike, and your input would be so valuable, and that you would have the other high stakes positions that you have in helping people survive this. But your dedication to continue doing it through it, despite your schedules outside of our meetings, and the work you do with Mr. Poor is remarkable. So thank you both for what y'all do, in addition to everyone else. You know, big week next week. Like I said earlier, I hope for a lot of patience, a lot of flexibility, and a lot of grace all the way around. Parents to teachers, teachers to parents, administrators to teachers, administrators to parents, parents to administrators, all the way. There's a lot of people that just gotta, let's get through next week. Let's figure this thing out, and let's get started on a successful year. So, all right. Hearing no other comments from members of the board, unless you want to. Going once, going twice. All right, hearing nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I just want to thank Ms. Pamela Smith for constantly getting out the message and the video, and we don't thank her. So to Ms. Pamela Smith for all of her hard work, and just from a messaging perspective, thank you so very much for your dedication. You are truly a rock star. So I had to
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll piggyback on that. This week, I think, was Pamela Smith's best week in the most chaos, the most shifting, and the most fluidity. We got more out this week, maybe than ever before. I don't know, maybe overstating that, but it was very present, and it was very good, and it was needed for families to see all that's happening.
She always rises to the occasion. Thank you, Pam. I'll move that we adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Without objection, then we'll be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Good night.